Do 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 do. Let's see. Let's get the stream going. Maybe I will go ahead and put out a notification if folks want to do something. I hope everyone is having a good day tonight. Let's see. Is it working? Looks like it's working. I've got a couple of things that I would like to talk about. I don't, not necessarily going to be all that like high energy today, but there's some stuff that we have to get to. I think I also probably want to do some gaming as well, because I haven't done gaming in a bit, and I've just like been talking so much about politics, the Epstein stuff that came out. We talked about Letnick last time, Trump, Musk. There's like a couple more things that I want to talk about, like regarding that. You know, not really a surprising person showed up in there, but we'll go ahead and cover like their defense and all the stuff that, you know, allegedly, right? I'm also still sick, almost recovered, but like I might occasionally have to cough. Like just might happen. I do want to like, I think it's funny also just addressing like a couple of things real quick from some of my like recent videos I've been clipping and posting. So apparently the Israel video that I posted did pretty good. It's got like over 400 views. And I noticed that like people in the comments that no one is like criticizing with any substance. No one is offering any insight whatsoever. They're not saying like, oh, you're totally wrong about this or whatever. It's either, you know, somebody was crying about pronouns being on the screen. Oh my God, no, not pronouns right here. You know, conservatives' major weakness, the most weak-willed snowflake people you've ever met. They can't stand the idea of even like having pronouns on a screen. Like, how dare I put she and they, you know? I can put my name, I can put Zoe Vext on here and ask that you use this handle, just like most of you watching this on the internet are all using pseudonyms online, and you expect us to just refer to you as those pseudonyms, and we refer to you as whatever pronoun that you typically want to be called. And yet, if we just put pronouns on something, y'all freak the hell out. You play video games all day long with characters that are pronounced and gendered exactly how like would stereotypically be correlated with their gender expression and their presentation. And y'all have no problem with that whatsoever. You'll call pixelated images a man, and you'll call pixelated images a woman with no problem. But if a real life person explains to you that like, hey, this is like part of my identity, then you toss your cookies. You get so angry, you start throwing things and yelling things and get all red-faced and spittle flying from your mouth as if you're like a WWE wrestler cutting a promo against like some like heated rival, somebody that you hate for what? Just because I have my pronouns on the screen for people that want to be polite, or people that like want to gender me correctly or engage with us in a way that would be polite. I don't understand like why well, I mean, I do understand y'all are like some really truly hateful people that have pathetic and sad lives, and because you're so angry and miserable and your lives are just wretched, you don't have friends who actually care about you. You have no one that's excited to see you when you come home. You don't have like a loving family. You're just some of the most insufferable people on the planet, and you know everybody dislikes you. You know that people don't care what you have to say about anything. So you find your own little echo chambers where there are other angry men dissatisfied with their lives. And instead of like considering what's actually making your life bad, you just want to target people that aren't like you and insult us and get on a soapbox to talk about how you're victims and people mistreat and abuse men in society, and will anybody think about you? Meanwhile, if we make our own spaces where we normalize the idea of like, oh yeah, you can just put your pronouns like on the screen or your pronouns in your bio, y'all lose your shit over it. Morgan says, more relaxed stream then. Definitely been a wild ride the last few streams. Yeah, them's the times. It has been wild, and I mean, I do have like some political stuff to get to. I have my game. I want to play my game, but I'm going to probably just start the stream off with just some like ranting and some of my thoughts on some of the stuff that's been going on. So like the pronouns, comments and stuff like that. I just find like these people are like absolutely like sad and pathetic. And the other thing that I thought was funny was instead of criticizing any of the points that I made on Israel, instead of saying like, oh, you're actually wrong about, Israel and, XYZ way, they had nothing to respond to at all. So the best thing they could do is either insult me for my pronouns, which is just like, I mean, who cares, right? We're talking about Israel. Why are you focused on pronouns once again? And some other person was talking about my appearance and was like, oh, your hair looks like it needs to be washed. And I'm just like, first of all, this is like my hair washed. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I wash my hair like every single day. And second of all, you're just being a racist asshole at that point. Like literally, my hair looks this way because I'm mixed race. That's why my hair looks like this. So like, I don't care like what you, ultimately think or have to say about it. I just think it's pathetic that that's where you go to. You can't answer my criticisms about Israel. You can't answer any of the things that like I actually have to say of substance. So you have to go to my appearance and pronouns because that's all you have. And that's all conservatives like ever have. And when you see people that show up to my streams and they want to criticize me or try and like insult me or make me miserable or whatever, that's all that they do. They constantly talk about like trans issues. Like they talk about trans issues more than I do. They almost talk about trans issues more than Nyara TV does, right? Like I like Nyara, but I bet you a lot of these those conservatives, I bet you they spend more of their time like tweeting about and talking about trans people and trans issues. I bet they talk about that way more than any of us do. Like 100%. But I want to do some gaming for a little bit. That's what I feel like doing. I don't feel like just subjecting myself to endless political abuse. And I have not at all had hardly any time to play any games, especially with y'all. So if you want to just chill and relax with me for a little while, we can do some gaming together. If you want to talk about what's going on, or if you want to talk about WoW and let me know, like, what do you think about the upcoming expansion? Are you excited about it? I kind of find I find the expansion pretty exciting, and hopefully monks will finally be as good as people are saying that monks are probably going to be. Like, it might be finally a time to main monk, but it also looks like it's just going to be like the brewmaster tanking class, which is fine. I enjoy tanking quite a bit, which is funny because people will talk all the time that there needs to be more tanks and that the game has a shortage of tanks. But then it's like, yeah, but if I go and tank or do things for tanking, all of a sudden, am I going to get insulted or like be shit talked and stuff for like being trans? Because like, you might laugh, but that's happened before where people, whenever we're playing a game like this and they need tanks, so they need people doing these roles. Did I not turn on auto loot or something? Yeah, auto loot is on. What's up with that? They will, they'll be happy that you're tanking for them so they can actually do the content dungeons and stuff like that. But then either like when you finish the dungeon or you get near the end of it, they might insult you or start talking, trash and insulting you because because you're queer, trans, whatever. It's also one of these things I think that's pretty telling, where I find very often conservatives and those who attack trans people all the time and think the most about us, I find that a lot of times they are very attracted to trans bodies. They just don't want to admit it, right? There's like different types of guys out there where you might have some guys that uh, despise trans people, and they are either homophobic or abusive toward us because they want to insinuate that somehow being attracted to a trans woman would make like a like cishet man gay or something, because they're trying to like invalidate us. Then there are men who are kind of open to like dating trans women, but they might look at us as like something to kind of like fill in the gap between like heterosexuality and like being gay or being bisexual, and they want to use us as kind of like a gateway to explore their sexuality because they're more comfortable exploring it like with a trans woman, because they view us as like, oh well, what, even if they can have a gay experience without like fully being all the way gay type of thing. That's how like some bigots like look at it. You might have some men that are fine with dating trans women, and they think like not one way or the other, where they think that like trans women are mostly like the exact same as any other woman, and it doesn't make them a difference one way or the other, which is probably like the ideal guy to date if you're going to date a man as a trans person, if I'm being honest. Like, why would it make a difference one way or the other? And then there are going to be people that are essentially like fetishize us entirely, and like I would definitely avoid those people if you can. And like I don't know. Speaking of sexuality, I kind of, so this is something that happened. Like, give me one second. I'm gonna get to somewhere where I can like just put my character aside, because I want a full screen for this. I might as well just go ahead and do like a segment on this, because this is something that happened, or I came across like yesterday, that really irked me. Just put myself somewhere safe for a minute. Oh yeah, and I love the drain eye, and the fact that like, look at this. Now you can be like red, so you can be like a succubus, like so close. And that reminds me, I'm gonna, what is it, like 89 gold just to transmog something? I'll have to send some gold. Anyway, let's just stop this for a second. So I'm gonna, let's do a segment. Let's see here. Let's go full screen. All right. So I write a lot of stories. It's what I do. I'm a writer in my like free time, and I've published stuff over time, but usually it's been like short stories and that sort of thing. One of the things that I also write periodically is I have written before like adult stories. Now, I couldn't discuss this on a server that I was in because it was like a PG-13 server, but I can go ahead and like actually talk about it here. So the issue that I ran into is that a lot of sites like Amazon Smashwords and those sites, if you write like adult content, some of them will end up saying that if you put certain types of kink in there, like Amazon will terminate your account, or Smashwords will terminate your account. There's like very specific rules around it. It has to be like listed as 18 plus, very clearly marked erotica. I don't really have an issue with any of that. Then they go on to say that none of the blurbs or any of the none of the photos, depictions, the covers, the summaries, none of that stuff can have any like risque content included in it, which I feel like, I mean, that's also like decently reasonable, because if you're wanting to make sure that if people are going to consume this, that they have all these warnings and they don't actually see adult content, that makes sense to me. Like that you can't get around it by putting certain like words or phrases in the book blurb or like in the summary. They're just trying to like, you know, dot their I's and cross their T's to make sure that there's not really a way for you to get around these rules to publish like erotica without people knowing it's erotica. Well, now my issue is, so moving on from there, you can publish what's called like steamy romance, and steamy romance can be as explicit as erotica, right? So then the question, but you know, the rules for it are a little bit different. So the question is, what really counts as the difference between like steamy romance versus erotica? And the answer there is going to be something like erotica are stories that are focused primarily on just the sex or the kink. So if you've ever browsed certain adult sites, or you've, you know, read like articles in like Playboy, Playgirl, Hustler, whatever, or you've browsed online and found some adult stories, you might notice that some of those stories are very short. They're like 4 to 5 pages, and they might explicitly focus on just like a sexual encounter and describe it in great detail. That would be erotica, where typically speaking, if you removed all of the erotic content out of the story, the question is there still a story there? Is there still a beginning, middle, end? Is there a plot that is moved through at all that revolves around anything other than the sexual content? If the answer is, well, yeah, there's like plenty of other plot, there's character development, there's things going on in the story, even if you removed all the erotic content out of it, it would still be like a complete book. If that's the case, then you're dealing with like steamy romance. If removing the adult content out of there seems like it would just remove everything, like there's nothing really left, then you're dealing with erotica. It doesn't really matter how explicit the scene is. Hopefully that makes sense. So like you could take the passages from an erotica and put them into a steamy romance. And the steamy romance would still be categorized as a romance book, even though it is just as explicit as the erotica standalone. It's just that there's more to the book than just the erotica. So I point this out because this is like a differentiation that a lot of these websites make, and what they determine for like romance standards and guidelines are going to be a little bit different than what they do for erotica. And I'm not saying that like everyone should have to read erotica. I'm not trying to like force anything like that whatsoever. You know, if you don't want to view it, then don't view it. It should be labeled clearly. There should be no deceptive marketing. You should know exactly what you're getting. I'm fine with somebody publishing romance and basically saying, hey, this is a steamy romance. And in fact, the booktube community, when it comes to romance, very often, because there is no rating level for it, right? If I say steamy romance, all you know is, well, it's got some sex in it. But the booktube community, some people came with the idea of like a spicy rating for it, and they basically would say like it's a 1 to 5 rating, and it's like little like peppers, like hot peppers. So it's like a hot pepper, like what's the spice rating of this book? I thought it was like, you know, pretty cute or whatever. So my issue is censorship. It's really what I'm leading up to, because Amazon and Smashwords will essentially dungeon your book, and that's where it's difficult to find it. Like they pull it out of the algorithm. So you're not banned, but you're just dungeoned, so that it's difficult to find it unless people like know specifically what the author's name is and what the story's book name is. It can be difficult to even find it listed anymore. It's never promoted, and it's not going to appear on any pages if you're just like browsing like romance books or something like that. Obviously, that sucks. Like that's going to like really harm your books. But then, so you might think like, okay, well, I'm not going to publish anything that's going to get me dungeoned, or banned, because there is some stuff that will just get you like flat out banned, right? And I agree with like a lot of the things that might be on that list. Like if you're writing non-consensual encounters, if you're writing anything that includes minors in those contexts, like they will just ban you. And I think that that's the right call with that type of book. They're a private company. They're allowed to do so. What I don't like is where guidelines for what gets you dungeoned or what gets you banned are very vague. So you're never like, you never know for sure, if I include this in my book, am I going to get banned? Am I going to get dungeoned? Is this acceptable or is this not? Because very famously, it is difficult for anyone to define erotic content in a way that makes it very clear what is acceptable and is not acceptable. And this is even within the law itself, which we're about to get to. So this is where I start getting even more frustrated about it, because let's look on one hand what I would consider like the extreme content. And yeah, Morgan, you said, yeah, because it's part of a wider narrative. Yeah, exactly. As long as the story is about more than just the erotic content, it's steamy romance. But this is what I was getting to specifically. So if we have certain types of things in the book, like non-consent or minors being involved, I understand just outright banning that. Like companies don't want to publish that. You don't want your company associated with publishing that type of thing. But then we get to like kink content, some of which can get you dungeoned or banned pretty easily, and some that doesn't. So then it's like, okay, well, if I'm writing like kinky stories, like, and I want to know what gets me dungeoned or what gets me banned, you can go in and look this up, and you can talk to other writers and stuff like that. And a lot of them will tell you, like, when it comes to stuff like this, you're just in a gray area, and you're always going to be kind of like riding the line of getting your account banned or dungeoned. You're just taking a risk. So it's not that you can't publish it. It's just that be aware that if at any time Amazon decides like they just don't like you particularly, they can just dungeon your account or ban you. And some of this stuff are kinks that I think like most adults would engage with without much issue, such as like BDSM, for instance. Sorry, I'm still sick. I need to drink quite a lot. But BDSM, some aspects of it might be like perfectly fine in a book, like handcuffing or something like that. But then if it's like more explicit and you're depicting a very realistic scene and people are being tied up and gagged and everything else, and there's like maybe somebody could make the case that like, oh, well, even if you have consenting characters and in the story you can go into their heads and be like, look, they're both consenting, everything is consensual, there's nothing non-con at all here, or dub-con, like dubious consent, they might still dungeon your book. Or like if you include water sports in your book, they might dungeon your book. Now, like, regardless of what you think about water sports, and this is like my frustrations with this, especially because according to Channel 4, when they did a interview or they did a poll among the UK, water sports was like the 9th most popular kink listed. The 9th most popular. And yet, UK obscenity laws would ban book content that includes water sports. And it's because they have very strange standards for what they consider obscene content. And I think like this is like flatly a violation of what should be protected by free speech. And in a lot of countries, and including the UK, they will say that obscenity laws do not, can violate free speech. Like if something's in violation of an obscenity law, then it can just be like outright banned. Why? Like if people want to read this, it's consenting adults, even if it's kinky content, like what's the issue? If you have to click links, if you have to agree to things, if it's gated over and over, you ought to be able to view it. And this is a little bit different if we're talking like published books versus online. And I'll get to that in a second. But back in the United States, we used to have this thing called the Hays Code. And the Hays Code was it was part of the Motion Picture Association, and it was for things that you were allowed to depict on film and things that you were not allowed to depict on film. And wouldn't you know, in that kind of puritanical culture, things that were allowed to be depicted is all going to be, Christian, cis, heteronormative family units and all this type of stuff. And things that are like not okay to depict were like queer people, people using drugs, sufficiently disabled people. It was like they're undesirables of society. And I can go down and just like, let's just take a look at some of this stuff. Let me find, where's the list at? All right. Oh, this is just, I absolutely hated this stuff. Okay. So this is what they said were some of the things on the be careful list when it came to the Hays Code. So using a flag. Okay. Picturizing unfavorable light, another country's religion, history, institutions, prominent people or citizenry. Maybe that makes sense. Religion or religious ceremonies. Well, why are they that protected? Arson, use of firearms, theft, robbery, right? Methods of smuggling, electrocution, sympathy for criminals. This is so broad. Sedition, branding of people or animals, apparent cruelty to children or animals, the sale of a woman or her virtue, first night scenes, men and women in bed together, surgical operations, use of drugs, right? And they literally also included like that's things to be careful of. Then they had the don'ts. These are things that you're not allowed to show. So if you were viewing like movies back in the day, you as the viewer, these are some of the things that you were not allowed to see under the Hays Code. So just think of all your favorite movies, think of all your favorite action movies, think of horror movies that you like, okay? Think of the entertainment that you consume. These were things under their obscenity laws that you were not allowed to see or hear. Pointed profanity. Motherfucker. So Jesus Christ is listed there. You couldn't say, oh, goddamn something. Okay? Licentious or suggestive nudity. In fact, or in silhouette. So you weren't even allowed to see the silhouette of like a nude person. Illegal traffic in drugs. So if you like any movies about where there's like, they're going after drug traffickers or whatever, you can't watch that. Any inference of sex perversion. Of course, trans people, queer people, gay people, like we're all included in that. White slavery. So you can't depict white slavery, but you could depict black slavery. Miscegenation. You couldn't depict miscegenation. So like if I wanted to have my grandparents in a film, they wouldn't have been allowed to be shown. And greetings, Shane. I'm just doing a segment right now. I'm ranting about obscenity laws. You know, we kind of talked a little bit yesterday about the subject that I had touched on. I'm doing like much more of a longer segment. So if you want to go back and kind of watch this to see what I was talking about, but I'm still going through it. So like it's still toward the beginning of this. Sex hygiene and venereal diseases. So you couldn't see anyone that had any STDs, but you also couldn't show a woman using a douche device. Like what? Scenes of actual childbirth, whether it's in silhouette. Okay. Obviously, you couldn't show new children. You could not ridicule the clergy. And then there's willful offense to any nation, race, or creed. Just think about the movies that you enjoy. What are your favorite movies that you watch? This type of code is absolutely ridiculous in censorship. And we went from having the Hays Code that was in like movies and determining what you were allowed to view like on the big screen. And now we're going to get over to other types of censorship. So there ended up being the Roth decision, all right? And it was Roth versus United States. And it had a companion case, Alberts v. California. And it basically, the court, in an opinion by Justice William J. Brennan Jr., so this is a Supreme Court justice, okay, created a test to determine what constituted obscene material and whether the average person applying contemporary community standards would find that material appeals to the prurient interest in sex and whether the material was utterly without redeeming social value. I don't know about y'all, but those sentences already don't make any sense to me with like my little lawyer cap on if I had to, you know, put it on. Who determines who the average person is? Who determines what, like, it says contemporary community standards. Which community? Every community has different standards depending on which community you're in. And the average person among a community is going to be different than the average person of any other given community. And it says whether the material was utterly without redeeming social value. The hell does that even mean? Because we had talked before the difference in erotica and spicy romance or steamy romance. And what they would argue is that erotica is without redeeming social value, but steamy romance is, because steamy romance has a story accompanying the erotic scenes. It turns out that Brennan's decision pissed off conservatives and liberals because it dissatisfied conservatives because they thought that they had gone too far in tolerating sexual imagery, and liberals thought that it infringed on the rights of adults. And I'm just going to say it infringed, right? So then later on, this same standard, so the Roth standard was then put in place for a while, and we're talking just general censorship across media. This isn't the Hays Code, which is just movies. This is the Roth Code, okay? This is the Roth standard. So then there was a court case later on, the Miller v. California. Now we're up to 73, all right? The Roth Code was in 57, and the Hays Code was from the 20s. We're just moving on up. So in 73, the Miller v. California case essentially set up a three-pronged standard for obscenity, and it removed the utterly without redeeming social value test, and they replaced it with a phrase, without serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. And of course, in that case, Brennan dissented, repudiating his previous position in Roth, arguing that states could not ban the sale, advertisement, or distribution of obscene materials to consenting adults. So he argued against his own point. Who knew what, 20 years could do. I just find it fascinating that our culture has had such puritanical obsession with these uh, stupid obscenity laws. So we have the Miller test that comes out of Miller v. California. Here are the 3 prongs of it. It says whether the average person applying contemporary community standards would find the work taken as a whole appeals to the prurient interest. Still have that one. Whether the work depicts or describes in a patently offensive way sexual conduct or excretory functions specifically defined by applicable state law. All right? And then whether the work taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific. So a work would be considered obscene if it violated, if all 3 conditions were satisfied. Some of the issues that people have had with this, obviously I have an issue with a lot of these obscenity laws. I hate them. I think that they're stupid. If you're a consenting adult and you agree and you pass through all the gateways to get to see material, you should be able to purchase it and read it. It's just, this is absurd. So here's some criticisms though from this. And this is like, some of my own thoughts on it. It's like the same things that you were probably thinking of me just reading that stuff, right? Because it allows for community standards and demands serious value. And Justice Douglas worried in his dissent that this test would make it easier to suppress speech and expression. Like, no shit it would, right? Miller replaced a previous test asking whether the speech or expression was utterly without redeeming social value, right? But the test generally makes it difficult to outlaw any form of expression. Many works decried as pornographic have been successfully argued to have some artistic or literary value, most publicly in the context of the National Endowment for the Awards during the 90s. The first 2 prongs of the test, that material appear to the prurient interest and be patently offensive, have been said to require the impossible, right? They're requiring that an audience consuming some material is turned on and grossed out at the same time. If you're having a disgust response to material, then clearly you're not turned on. And every single adult listening to this that's ever engaged with adult material, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That whether you're reading something, whether you're watching something, there's going to be some things that you read or watch and you think like, this is really doing it. Like maybe you have an experience and something is awakened in you and you now realize that you really like something sexually that you didn't realize that you had an interest in before, right? This happens. At the same time, there's going to be plenty of things that I'm sure you've seen online or you've read about or seen pictures of where you see something that people are doing sexually and you're like, whoa, like oh my God, that's disgusting. And it revolts you. Shane says, it says that the most shocking thing to you is that anyone buys the idea that the right are for freedom of speech, historically or modernly. No, I agree 100%. It's absurd to me that people are going to think like conservatives are the ones defending free speech when free speech has always been defended by people that are further on the left, either liberals, more leftist. And then the things that challenge, I get so tired of this when I hear from conservatives that, well, you don't really support freedom of speech if you don't support people like saying hate speech or saying things, the things that you really don't like. I'm like, okay, first of all, you can say things I don't like all day long. You can say all sorts of odious opinions, but there's actual harm that's being done when it comes to hate speech. And this is demonstrable. But when it comes to like pornographic content, a lot of times it's a victimless crime. No one is being harmed as long as everyone is consenting that's involved. And we could put some standards in place, like there must be like willing consent given, right? You can't depict people doing non-consensual things. But you know what? I know that that's not even true. I know that society doesn't care about that because what have you seen in plenty of movies, right? You've seen depictions of sexual assault, sometimes brutally or graphically showing it. And that's because in those films, the standard that, well, the film is showing, there's some other plot or there's some greater story that's being told. That's the focus of it. The focus of the entire movie is not just the one SA scene. Otherwise, you could argue that that's, that is obscene because it's non-consensual stuff going on. But we see, especially in horror movies and movies where people are being trafficked, like SA scenes in a lot of these movies are pretty common, right? There's a reason why people ask for like trigger warnings on stuff. Ironically enough, conservatives are against trigger warnings and cry all the time about the idea of having trigger warnings. Oh, you're a little snowflake, you want trigger warnings. When it's like, but no, that's y'all. Y'all are the ones who are like, oh my God, I was browsing this website and I saw somebody getting peed on. I'm losing my mind now. I'm so offended. Oh, I need a hanky. That's the right? That's conservatives. Y'all are the ones that melt down over everything. Y'all are the ones that mock trigger warnings, but then you want to pass obscenity laws because people might see something that you think is unsightly, because you're not attracted to something, because you have a disgust response to something. Other people shouldn't be able to view it, to read about it, or enjoy it. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, right? There's plenty of kinks that I don't like, that I'm disgusted by, that turn me off, right? I'm also a trans person, right? My body might be something that some of these people find disgusting. And that's fine. They don't, they don't have to view everything. Yeah, pull over the fainting couch for them. Yeah, exactly. Hold on a second. I need to go to my settings. I should turn off. I had a delay turned on here. Let's see. Maybe I'll just worry about it later. I had a delay set up if I was going to be streaming on other sites that, have more of an issue. And I never turned it back off. There's like a 5-second delay or something like that, or a 10-second delay, I think. So just forgive me if you feel like I react later to what you're saying. It's because the stream is on a delay. And that was like specifically for people like trying to harass us. And, if really inappropriate things were said or posted, I could just stop the stream before it went out. Anyway, you see this over and over though. And this has been like a problem in our society for a long time. And like, I'm not trying to just be like, a Loretta Flint up here and, go campaigning for pornography or whatever else. But why not? Like, why are we still having these conversations? It's 2026, right? In 97, the Supreme Court had to rule on a case called Reno versus the ACLU, right? It's the American Civil Liberties Union. For those of you that don't know, all right, all 9 justices struck down provisions in what was called the Communications Decency Act, the CDA, and that was aimed at protecting minors by criminalizing so-called indecency on the internet. It's why in America, most of you are able to enjoy your free speech and you're able to go view adult materials on adult websites. It is because of the ACLU challenging things like that. So when conservatives are like, oh, the ACLU is woke and we should get rid of it and everything else, you better realize that like part of the reason why you've even been able to read the adult stuff that you've been able to read and buy that sort of stuff is because of the ACLU. And that's why like Amazon was able to, post and sell some of these stories and online and everything else. It's because of that decision. And the Reno decision essentially ruled unanimously that the anti-indecency provisions of the 96 Communications Decency Act violated the First Amendment's guarantee to freedom of speech. Right, it is the first major Supreme Court ruling on the regulation of materials distributed on the internet. That's 1997. Now, obviously, it didn't fix everything, but this is essentially the Magna Carta of the internet being a haven for free speech. And hopefully, the ACLU will continue suing on behalf of people whenever they are, you know, silenced or they are taken down off of like social media sites, you know, or they say like, oh, well, like as long as there's, you don't violate a TOS, like people complain about like porn being on Twitter and stuff like that. I mean, if you're having to follow them, if you're having to subscribe to their stuff or click links or whatever to see it, that's on you. I famously, there's been TERFs that have complained about having to see like nude trans bodies in their algorithm. And it's like the algorithm doesn't recommend that to you unless you've been viewing that yourself or stalking these people. And I know myself from having argued with TERFs, and then one of them went back like 3 years through my media to try to find images of my genitalia imprinting on my outfit and take pictures of that and then post it, right? So they sought that out about me and then complained that people could see that. And I'm like, this is from 3 years ago. And you sought that out, posted it, and now you're mad that you can see it. Right? This is the kind of people that we're dealing with. These are people that want to view the material, they want to see it, or they seek it out, and then they get upset that they are seeing what they sought out at the end of the day. And with a lot of these conservative types, you know, some of the TERFs have been caught viewing pornography on public trains, like where other people around them could see what they were viewing. Even if it's like, you know, you're in a public place, a minor might see that, right? I'm not saying that you should be able to just show people porn in public, but what I am saying is that if you're in the privacy of your own home or the privacy of your own phone or internet connection, you should be able to buy and read the things that you want to. That's it. I don't know why that would be so conservative. And I hope that Amazon and Smashwords, I hope they clarify their rules a little bit better for what is and is not allowed as far as like kinks. I wish they would definitively say whether posting stories with certain things will get you like banned or whatever. For instance, furries. A lot of you know what furries are, right? A lot of furries draw art that involves adult themes or characters engaging in sex. And I find it like very annoying that on some sites, if you post furry porn, they might try and say that that's somehow bestiality and ban you. When furry stuff is, that's not bestiality. Those are anthropomorphic characters that have human sapience. They are not animals. And yet that will be projected onto them specifically to censor or ban them. Anyway, that will be my my rant about kink and censorship. I hate censorship so much. I feel like if you want to read a story about people, you know, drinking each other's fluids, go ahead. If you want to read a story about, you know, engaging in BDSM, why can't you? Right? Without fear of the artist being removed. Like, I don't even write erotica as my primary thing. I don't write almost any erotica at all. The things that I would write would be like considered like spicy romance. And I primarily just write like heroic fantasy, urban fantasy, and science fiction. Although I do have a monster romance that I'll be releasing. And in that monster romance, there's absolutely kink stuff in there if you like monsters, right? But I don't want them to say, well, that's bestiality because they're there's a creature involved, even though it has human sapience, and there's like oviposition involved. Like, okay, or ovipositing involved. So whatever. If you like it, read it. If you don't like it, don't buy it and don't read it. But I'm not like, I will be damned before someone buys my book and I've told them what's in it. I've made it very clear of what kind of a creature this is and everything else. And they're like, oh, I'm going to go read this thing. Then I'm going to get upset because there's a sex scene that involves egg laying when like I already told you what was in it. Like you already knew it before you bought it. Like save the pearl clutching, or in this case, the egg clutching, you know? You say, Morgan says, I don't know why kink is something we need a pearl clutch over when it's harmless in most situations, saying it's obscene, but normal sexual content is completely arbitrary and gets your goat. Yeah, no, it's so frustrating. Like, BDSM is just, that's just, as far as I know, like, that is a very, very common kink that people enjoy. That's why I was pointing out that water sports had been ranked the 9th most popular kink in all the UK. It's the ninth most popular, but if you post a story about drinking, you know, engaging in water sports, I guess being peed on or drinking something, they'll ban your book. They can ban your book, even though it's the 9th most popular kink. So like, what is this like common person standard? The common person apparently likes this. At least a large subset of them do. Pearl clutching is directly tied to enforcing patriarchy and capitalism. Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. But I'm going to move on to another segment real quick. I'm not going to cover, I'm not going to go over too much of this shit. Just because I've been doing politics and the streams have been pretty dire. Like the last couple streams, it's just been like really, you know, Epstein stuff and everything else. I wanted to do a more chill stream. I've ranted now, for a while about, you know, obscenity and kink and that sort of thing. I don't know. I was thinking, I could always just rant about trans issues some more, but instead, let's focus on Trump for a second. Are y'all aware that Trump is trying to sue the IRS for $10 billion? All right. As if that's not a conflict of interest. Okay. I'm going to be reading parts of an article from the Associated Press from Fatima Hussein. All right. And just going to read some sections of this so that y'all get the general gist of what's going on. Right. He wants to sue the IRS for $10 billion. All right. So he's just wanting to rob taxpayer money. So can we afford to give you health care? No, we can't. Can we afford to solve homelessness? No, we can't. Can we afford to give Venezuela like $100 billion investing to steal oil out of that country? Oh, well, that's something that we should do. Let's just give billions of dollars to ICE funding. Let's give billions of dollars to our military, but not pay for your health care, not pay for anything. Oh, and while we're at it, not pay for your education. So we can't put money toward your education. But you know what we can put money toward? We can put our taxpayer money toward giving Donald Trump $10 billion while the people that are on the case are literally members of his administration that he appointed. And why does he think that he can sue for $10 billion? All right. It's because he's saying that there was a leak of his tax information. All right. And he's wanting to claim that it caused him reputational and financial harm, public embarrassment, and unfairly tarnished their business reputations, portrayed them in a false light, and negatively affected Donald Trump and the other plaintiffs' public standing. The other plaintiffs are like his kids, by the way. It's like Don Jr. and shit. All right. So in 2024, a former IRS contractor, Charles Littleton of Washington, D.C., who worked for Booz Allen Hamilton, a defense and national security tech firm, was sentenced to 5 years in prison after pleading guilty to leaking tax information about Trump and others to 2 news outlets between 2018 and 2020. First of all, every other presidential candidate has released their tax information. All of them have. So why does Trump think that because this was released, that he should be able to sue for this? On top of that, Trump had already been convicted of fraud in New York. Do y'all remember like Letitia James? And why does he keep bringing up Letitia James? The reason why he's bringing up Letitia James was because of Judge Engoron's decision against Trump that had found him liable for fraud in New York and essentially ordered him to pay. But it was between him, his kid, and like their businesses, something like $550 million to different companies that they had defrauded. Now, I don't care that an appellate court that was like largely like, MAGA heavy by that point, granted Trump's appeal on this to essentially say, well, even though they're guilty of the fraud, we're going to just waive all of the charges. Like, they're not going to have to pay penalties. Oh, the $550 million is way too many in penalties, so we're just going to get rid of it entirely. And then Letitia James's case comes down later on. But Trump was convicted of like 34 felony counts of fraud. Like, that is factual. I don't know why he would think that leaking the actual amount of money that he made from the IRS, why the hell would that be considered defamation? Okay. And Trump had tried to sue before and already lost a case against this author, Timothy O'Brien, that wrote a book called Trump Nation. All right. So Trump said in 2007, so let's go all the way back to 2007. Trump said that he thinks that everybody exaggerates their property values and that he did not do so beyond reason. All right. He said he would give his opinion to Trump Organization Chief Financial Officer Alan Weisselberg, who predominantly determined final values, which Trump called conservative. Let's just talk for a second about what Trump was doing, because if you're not an American, then the charges of fraud, when you first hear it, it might not really make sense as far as what exactly is being said here. Or if you just want to know what precisely was he guilty of. All right. This is what he was doing. He would get appraisal values on his property, and he would have it appraised as low as worth less value. So he paid less taxes on it. But then he would overvalue the property when he was trying to sell it. Having your property appraised at different values so that you can pay less taxes, but then overvaluing it through appraising so you can sell it for more than it is worth is fraud. That's what he was convicted of. They sold several properties that they were undervaluing every time they paid taxes on it. All right. So if they say, like, well, my building is only, let's just say hypothetically, all right, my building is only worth like $500,000, but the true value of the property is worth $1 million. All right. But then he sells the property to someone else for $4 million and has appraisals done up that reflect that the property is worth 4,000 or 4 million when it's only worth 1 million. So he's paying taxes on property that's worth 500,000, but then selling it for like $400 million. That's fraud. You're defrauding the government, and you're defrauding the person that you're selling the property to, because those appraisals are not accurate, right? That's fraud. And I'm not going to talk about, I'm not going to risk anyone I know, but I will say that I'm very familiar with the appraisal process. I'm very familiar with Florida appraisal and how Florida appraisal works. What Trump was doing in New York, all right, that's fraud. It's not, the appraisal market in Florida is not very different from the appraisal market in New York as far as how appraisals are done, how properties are traded, and the fact that Trump owns properties in both of those states, right? He's more than aware of this, especially because Trump himself was in real estate for so long, all right? So in January 27, ahead of his first inauguration, his attorney, Sherry Dillon, had announced that the organization's businesses were supposed to be transferred to a trust that was going to be controlled by Trump's sons, Donald Jr. and Eric Trump, as well as Weisselberg. So there's Weisselberg's name again. All right. So this is just a commentary on this. All right. We're AOC. So in February of 2019, so now 2 years later, prompted by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez asking whether Trump had ever presented inflated assets to an insurance company. The inflated assets would be the thing where you're claiming that your property is worth $4 million when it's only worth $1 million. All right, that's an inflated asset. She asked if Trump had ever presented inflated assets to an insurance company, and former Trump personal attorney Michael Cohen, and yes, that's the same Michael Cohen of the Midas Network, testified to Congress that Trump had inflated the organization's total assets when it served its purposes, such as trying to be listed among the wealthiest people in Forbes, and deflated his assets to reduce his real estate taxes. Following Cohen's testimony, the New York State Department of Financial Services issued a subpoena to Aon, the organization's longtime insurance broker. All right? Trump was found guilty on all of that. That's the fraud that he was found guilty on. Now, whether an appellate court wiped out the fines from that is not relevant, right? He's a fraudster, right? He's already convicted of fraud here. We also know that he had been convicted of not renting out apartments to black people back in the 80s. All right? He's convicted of fraud on that one. There's also where people say, I remember there was a claim going around that that Trump cheated children's cancer charities. That's not entirely true. That's not entirely accurate. What they had done, it was fraud. All right, they were essentially taking in large donations for supposed charities that they were going to donate to and everything else. Some of those charities were children's charities, and some of those were supposed to be for like St. Jude's children's like cancer charity, that sort of thing. They claimed that they were gathering money to donate to those things, and they instead spent the money on like business organization and other things. A lot of people have said that like they stole directly from those charities. It's not that they stole directly from the charity, it's that they raised a lot of money that supposedly was going to go to these different charities, and they never donated the money to. And because of that, it's not that Trump can never run another charity again in New York. It's that if his organization ever ran any more charities and he was like the head executive officer of it, they'd have to report their taxes and stuff every single year for 5 years because of their, prior, I guess what you would think of as more of like embezzlement of funds than anything else. But that's still like fraud. This man has bankrupted. He's filed bankruptcy like 7 times. All right, hold on. Let me double check that. Is it 7 times or is it 14 times, right? How many times has Trump filed bankruptcy? Right? Let's see. Chapter 11 has been 6 times. And part of this was, multiple casinos, which sounds like a joke. Like people will say, how do you bankrupt a casino? Like I thought casinos just kind of like print their own money. But I think, and this is just me speculating, allegedly, okay? Allegedly, I think it was a money laundering scheme. Allegedly. I think it's an alleged money laundering scheme. That's why they're running those casinos. I don't think that they're running those casinos as like legitimate businesses. I think that with all of his real estate stuff going on and all of the other like embezzlement and all the other issues that Trump has had and, his friends donating, like giving him large amounts of money and stuff, I think they were using those casinos to launder money. Allegedly. I'm just alleging it. It's probably what they're doing with it. But what do y'all think? Yeah, you can't even run a casino as a front. Look, if you bankrupt a casino, like you have a special gift at like fucking up money, right? I'm just like everything you touch, you're fucking up. Yeah, give me 1 second to turn off Discord notifications. I always forget to do that. Streamer mode. on there. Now you shouldn't hear any more pings. I don't know. I guess the fact that they failed to allow him to get money from the government on the back end or something. Oh, I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure if you look at it at the end of it, there's like some type of fraud that's being like done here, almost certainly. Just because of the other things that he's done, his pattern of behavior, like I would be highly suspicious of all the logs and stuff of these other companies. Like I would not be surprised whatsoever if there's like laundering or something going on there, especially because of like the large amounts of donations and stuff that he was getting for certain properties, or just people have given him and paid stuff off. Like, it's very suspicious. However, I want to talk about something else really quick that I think is pretty funny. Well, it's not funny, not in a ha-ha way, but it's funny in a like really disgusting way. Okay, so are y'all aware that there's plenty of people in the Epstein files that you'd probably intuitively think like, well, that makes sense. Like you anticipate that these people are in there, right? Steve Bannon in the Epstein files, Elon Musk in the Epstein files. I found it interesting. And this is just some of the stuff that like, you just seem like you can't make this stuff up. Okay. The founder of 4chan and the guy that essentially made, like slash poll, right? So, Moot, he's also in the Epstein files. And ironically enough, it turns out that like the entire slash poll thing might be a Steve Bannon psyop to cover up the Epstein files, like from the very beginning. It's just wild. And give me 1 second. Why is that? Well, let's just full screen this. There we go. All right. Let's take a look at that. So, what do you think that you're seeing here? From Epstein and talking with Moot. Whoops. 100%. It's just wild. Yeah. They're talking about Moot, and Epstein, saying that, oh, he's very bright. Okay. Oh, I had no idea. No clue when we first met him. We talked for almost an hour nonstop. He will be a friend. FYI, he is one of the greatest hackers. I liked Moot a lot. Okay, from Jeffrey Epstein. I liked him a lot. I drove him home. He is very bright. All right. This is from the guy, literally the founder of 4chan, Moot. So, 4chan directly tied to pedophilia, 100%. Like the entire idea that 4chan was like, oh, we're going to, go after people and expose them and go after all the pederasts and stuff like that, and like, continuously insinuating that LGBT people are the real predators. Probably a psyop literally orchestrated by Steve Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein to help distract them and put all the pedo hunters and stuff after like our community and, people like us, saying that, oh, all LGBT people, are predators. Meanwhile, their founder and the person organizing their entire site was in cahoots with Jeffrey Epstein. Like, it's just wild how far this goes. Okay? And there's this. All right. Now, these photos, and you can, here's Trump with very young girls of an undetermined age. That is not all the photos that we have. All right. There's also photos of Jeffrey Epstein with what is clearly a child biting on her underwear and pulling it up out of her pants. I tell you that because you know who was aware of those photos? You know who had seen those photos and the Jeffrey Epstein stuff of him like with the young girl's panties in his mouth that he is like tugging out of her pants? And I'm talking a young girl like 11, 10. Kash Patel. Kash Patel, who perjured himself in court. He was under oath, and he said that there was nothing in the Epstein files that would insinuate that Epstein trafficked children. That his trafficking was basically all young women. Now, we have seen some of the photos that have come out, and the Justice Department has pulled down like a lot of these files trying to protect people in it. And somebody at the FBI like leaked 5,000 more pages. And Trump appears thousands of more times in the leaks. Thousands. I told you last time we covered this, Schumer said that the first number that they were given was 6 million pages. Then when the Justice Department says that they're releasing all of them, they release 3 million. Right? So there might be another 3 million pages that we're missing. Shane says, you remember years ago, about 5 months before QAnon was reported in the mainstream media, your flat earth uncle was telling you all about the secret organization of Democrat PDFs that Trump, during his first term, was fighting and dismantling as president. You haven't seen him recently, but when I do, I'm reminding him of this and asking him how he feels. Now that we know the whole narrative was a projection. Oh, the whole narrative was a psyop, okay? I'm not even exaggerating this. The more time we have to sort through these files, I'm not surprised to find out that Sloppy Steve was working in conjunction with Epstein to find guys like dumbasses like Moot to be like, oh, you have a, online message board of some of the worst people, online, and you can easily radicalize these young men into hating all the right people that they want them to hate. Meanwhile, protecting the actual pederasts. And Kash Patel was aware of all of this when he perjured himself. All right? I'm not kidding here when I say we should prosecute every single person involved in this. Kash Patel should be removed as the FBI director and jailed. He should be prosecuted and jailed for perjuring himself over the Epstein files. He is clearly trying to cover this up. And I don't know if you want to say this is just him being like a dipshit and not really able to track it. No, that's perjury. Okay? He's responsible for all this stuff. He said he looked through all the files, he looked through all the photos, all the videos, and none of it was Epstein trafficking children. We have multiple photos now of Epstein in bed with children. Right? They trafficked children as well. They did. And all the other people that are connected to this, all of them should have to answer for this shit. And that goes for, Musk. And I know that they're going to try to like make, Howard Lutnick their fall guy, almost guaranteed. They're going to try to just push everything off on Lutnick and say, well, Lutnick, was the actual like crux of it. It was actually Epstein and Lutnick. They lived right next door to each other. Okay, Trump lived a few blocks from him in New York. There's all these videos and photos of them together for years. Trump telling me he's my best friend for like 15 years. We know that Mar-a-Lago was used as a ground to recruit these women, to abduct them from. We know that Trump flew numerous times on Trump's planes. Supposedly, the first time that he had sex with Melania, allegedly, was on the Lolita Express, Trump's primary, or Epstein's primary plane for sex trafficking people. So no, I think that prosecute Patel. All of them. Everyone that is covering this up. I don't know why this is so hard. And whenever you talk to conservatives, like, don't ever let them fucking forgive this. Or forget it. I will never take them serious. Not like, they should have no political viability, and you should just like label them as pedo defenders if they do not condemn this. And you can say all day long, oh, but these are just allegations, right? Allegations don't mean guilt. I agree. Allegations alone do not equal guilt, but we have so many victims, so much corroborating evidence, that if you take seriously that there is any sort of like ring of people abducting and trafficking these girls, like, we have the victims, we know Epstein was guilty, we know Maxwell was guilty, and these are people that are close knit and tied to them. We know the island, we know where the crimes happened. All right, there are crimes. This isn't just alleged. There are crimes. There were victims, we know. And this man was best friends with Epstein for 15 years. His home, his personal house, was used to sex traffic people out of. If Trump was a trans person, they would like already have like tar and feathered this guy. Like, it's undoubtedly, if this was a trans person, oh my God, there'd be no question if they were guilty or not by the conservatives. They will just make up trans people, like when that dipshit Charlie Kirk was fucking shot. All right, they made up a trans person to be the shooter then. All right, Kash Patel saying that this is a trans person, the same guy that perjured himself under oath that these photos don't exist. Just don't believe your own fucking eyes. Don't believe the videos that you can go and watch. All right? All the evidence must all just be made. It's all psyops. It's all lies. All right? You can look through and see all these connections and the people that they are connected to. And when you see like Poll and 4chan and you see this stuff like that, it's very obvious that these are the people that have forever tried to like meme their way out of being predators. Oh, as long as it's just jokes, as long as it's just edgy jokes or whatever, it's fine. Despite the fact that all these people that have gotten wrapped up in this culture war bullshit and have led to the memification, the dumbification of our fucking society, watering down intelligence by these stupid fucking memes that they're spreading. Instead of giving anything meaningful, it's like stupid cartoons with buzzwords or slogans on it. All right, you've memified everything so fucking much that like you can't have serious conversations about things. It's like there's not actual repercussions for these people. All they have to do is say, "Oh, it's just memeing, it's just jokes." All right. So a name that you probably wouldn't expect. Oh, look, what's this? Harry fucking Potter. You know who's also in the Epstein files? And this isn't alleged. Fuck you, bitch. J.K. Rowling. Fucking in bed with the sex trafficking pedos. 100%. Sue that. This isn't alleged. This is in the files. All right? This is an invitation for Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. And who sent the invitation at the very fucking top? Sonia Friedman, Colin Collender, and J.K. Rowling. Invite you in to guest the official Broadway opening of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, Sunday, April 2018. This is well after 2008, when Epstein was convicted the first time for sex trafficking kids. Rowling would have known. Everyone involved would have known. They would have known exactly who the fuck Epstein is. And the fact that you are inviting him to a Broadway play, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. We're not stupid. And your little fucking memes and shit aren't funny. We know why you're doing this, because a lot of these, like, you know, right-wing freaks all have a disgusting sense of humor where, like, oh, invite the pedophile to a play about a cursed child. All right? J.K. Rowling has already said a bunch of shit. She's also a Holocaust denier. What's this? The Nazis burnt books on trans healthcare and research. Why are you so desperate to uphold their ideology around gender? Okay, she quote tweeted that, and Rowling said, how did you type this out and press send without thinking, I should maybe check my source for this because it might have been a fever dream. So accusing the eradication, the systemic targeting and eradication of LGBT people and transgender people in Nazi Germany, Rowling is saying that that is that might be a fever dream, and that sources should be checked. The Hirschfield Institution of Sexology and Research. Okay, that's where that fucking came from. And fuck Rowling for saying that. I'm so tired of this old fucking catty whore. Just fuck you on like all the way down. I try to be polite to TERFs. I try to have reasonable conversations with them. But the more that has come out about Rowling, not only the racism in her books, not only the disgusting, you know, the treating a werewolf spreading a blood plague around as if it's like HIV. All right. I don't give a fuck. All right. Now she's connected with Epstein. Right. An elementary school level understanding of history. And they will call us all the worst fucking things on the planet. You know, they will meme about our deaths, joke about the 42%, you know, suicide rate bullshit. They'll joke about, you know, trans people jumping off of bridges and stuff like that. But you want to clutch your pearls because I call her like a bitch or a whore. No, fuck that. She's an old fucking whore. That's what she is. Because she's been paid to say the things that she's being paid. And she was paid by pedophiles. I'm sure, you know, Epstein and his buddies left her some fucking, you know, change on her dresser after she fucking was done running their propaganda and servicing for them. All right. JK has gone on to say that, oh, well, no. She never sent that stuff, and she wasn't directly involved in sending that invitation, okay? She's running defense for this, and she's saying that that wasn't her. There's other names on it. It's her company. Epstein was well connected, all right? And let's pretend for a second, let's just pretend that maybe JK is telling the truth, and maybe she didn't send the invitation personally. Maybe she didn't know about Epstein. So I'm sure she never said anything in history that would have led to suspicious, like a suspicious affection of pederasts, right? Oh, wait, what's this? Oh, look. This is J.K. Rowling being interviewed, okay? And this is, so quote, but most surprising, the single mother, okay, she was asked about, you know, what she thought was like important literature, all right? The single mother chose Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita, the controversial tale of a pedophile's love for a 12-year-old girl whose life he ruins through abuse, as one of her favorite novels. Speaking in a rare interview for a new Radio 4 series about famous people's favorite books, she confides, quote, there are 2 books whose final lines make me cry without fail, irrespective of how many times I read them. And one is Lolita. There is so much I could say about this book. There just isn't enough time to discuss how a plot that could have been the most worthless pornography becomes, in Nabokov's hands, a great and tragic love story. And I could exhaust my reservoir of superlatives trying to describe the quality of the writing. So now we have an old interview of Rowling lamenting how beautiful this book is about this pedophile and his relationship with this girl that he's abusing. And it's one of her favorite books is about a pedophile. And I'm sure she's just like, oh, they're just misunderstood, this poor man. But she hates trans people and thinks that we are all fucking predators. Okay? And she just non-stops fucking slanders trans people and calling us groomers and everything else. All right? It's just fucking terrible. It's disgusting. And then we have people that are directly messaging Jeffrey Epstein right here, asking if they can meet J.K. Rowling through him. All right. Why would people be asking about if they can see J.K. Rowling via Jeffrey Epstein if he has no connection whatsoever? It's unbelievable. You just can't make this shit up. Oh, yeah. Hannah says, how about conservatives leave kids alone? 100%. Yeah. You hear how much they cry, protect the kids while they harbor a pedo cult. Oh, 100%. And I'm sorry, but like Asmongold going after Niara and all that shit. Like, are you fucking serious? Niara, who just says that trans kids deserve to have fucking health care. All right. And you're going to say like, oh, leave the kids alone. Leave the kids alone. Meanwhile, J.K. Rowling is literally sending, an invitation to Jeffrey Epstein to a play about a child. And she goes on and on about how much, she loves like Nabokov's fucking pedophile novel. How much it's one of her favorite books of all fucking time. All right. And we say conservatives leave kids alone. You know who also got arrested? All right. And this is like a little while back. Okay. This is years ago. All right. Look at this guy. Do you know who that fucker is? All right. That is Robert Morris, one of Trump's fucking spiritual leaders. All right. You can't make this up. One of Trump's spiritual leaders in his first term was a pedophile. How many fucking pedophiles does Trump got to be connected to? Got to be friends with? Not only was he best friends powering around and partying with this guy, but his spiritual advisor. I don't know how much more clear you can be. His spiritual advisor for his religion, for his religious views, in his first term was also a pedophile. Like, what? This is like a bad fucking joke. Yeah, Morgan says like she's literally more two-faced than the antagonist of her first book. Yeah, fuck this bitch and her false victim narrative while she funnels comically large funds of fountains of cash. Yeah, towards Trumpstein. 100%. She's all fucking wrapped up in this shit. And that's not that, like, I'm telling you right now, people are looking at J.K. Rowling in this, okay? Look up the other TERFs, all right? Find her associates and search their names in the files. I bet you a lot of these large TERFs, especially the conservative, I guarantee, I'd bet money on this. I bet the people that founded the whole like LGB alliance, Google their fucking names. they're rich conservatives. They're almost certainly wrapped up with this Epstein shit. And it's just going to sound conspiratorial at this point. But like, I want to do a project. I know I said I wasn't going to do video essays. Like, that's not really what I want to do. I should just investigate this and just connect these fucking people together. I bet they're in the Epstein files. I guarantee you the funding that goes to LGBT Alliance. Look up these sex matters fucks. All right, I bet they're involved in this as well. Because the same group of people are involved in multiple organizations at the very top. They're all funding it together because they're all like incestuous with these different groups. Yeah, Shane says there are a few phrases that you'll never accept for conservatives again. Law and order, freedom of speech, guns are necessary to protect the people from an oppressive state and especially protect the children. 100%. Yeah. At this point, Hannah says, at this point, it feels like part of the interview process to join the government is, do you abuse kids? Unironically, that's what this sounds like. And we have to sit here and listen to people, you know, like Asmongold and these dumb fucks run defense over and over and over again for Trump and all the people around him that abuse others. And we have to listen to them speculate and besmirch trans people and migrants. I saw today, I'm gonna be honest with you, this is how radicalizing this shit is to me. Right? If you're as mad as I am, I hope like this is something like you said, you know what else I'm not going to hear anymore, Shane? I saw today somebody, a Republican senator tweeted out a picture of some like 12 or 13-year-old girl smiling. And he's like, it breaks my heart that this woman was murdered by migrants. I'm so sad and we've got to do something about this. I'm like, no. Not from y'all. You don't get to say that anymore, all right? If you care about kids, if you care about people being murdered, then you have to speak out or call that shit out all the fucking time. Stop mocking feminism and our concerns for the way that women are treated in society. Stop mocking the idea that there's a rape culture when the girl that was killed was raped and murdered, and stop focusing on it when it's just a migrant. Right? You're supposed to say, oh, it's because it's a migrant. All right, I'm sorry. As Trump might say, our homegrowns seem to be a lot worse than these migrants. All right? That migrant harmed one fucking person and was arrested. But for some reason, it seems like this giant cult, this pedophile cult that has sex trafficked lots of young girls and that supposedly strangled and murdered and buried some of them, allegedly, at Mar-a-Lago, but we can't investigate that. We can't even go and dig up Mar-a-Lago, dig up the grounds, even though Trump also had one of his ex-wives buried on a golf course. And now we have tips in the Epstein files that some of the victims may have been killed and buried on their golf courses, as they had said, quote, we'll bury the holes with the other holes with the rest of those cunts. That's what's said in the files. Which, once again, this right-wing humor, your little fucking edgy poll 4chan meme stuff. Oh, we're going to bury the holes with the holes. Get it? Because women are just holes, and we bury them with the golf holes. Like, that's your fucking rape culture that y'all have normalized. That's talking about kids being killed by pedophiles and buried on a fucking golf course. That's what y'all normalized with all this edgy meme bullshit. All right? And every time you're desensitizing people to the idea of suicide or fucking murder by gloating over trans people being murdered or gloating over trans people suiciding, eventually it's this whole fucking boomerang, right? Now it's back to y'all, where people are literally joking and laughing about these children being murdered and shit and memed on, instead of it being taken serious. Yeah, 100%. The selective empathy is putrid. Exactly. I can look at this and be like, oh, this woman was, this young girl was raped and murdered by this man. That's disgusting. I hope they get this guy, they arrest him, and he faces fucking justice. Why is it so hard for conservatives to say the same thing about the other side? I hope that everyone involved. Why are not one of these fuckers, not one person in the Epstein files has been arrested on this? It's all, well, these are just allegations. I arrest them and do a full investigation. Everyone that's tied to this. Every single one of these fucking people. Not fucking, I don't care that fucking, whatever, what was it, Prince Edward, where the fucking prince was? They're like, oh, he's no longer a prince. Oh, they took his title from him. Who gives a fuck? Prosecute him! What are you talking about? Who cares about his fucking title? Prosecute him. And all the others. Find out their ties. Make them go to fucking, put them in jail. Just like you would that migrant that you're so mad about. Make them do interviews. Make them give up who else was involved. Find out everything about it. This is a joke. I'm sorry for peeking my mic. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to me that we have to listen to them fearmonger about migrants that commit a crime when we have arrested them and we have this guy in jail. Now in the Epstein files, all these people involved are still free. They're still, a massive fucking RICO case. 100%. Arrest them all. Put them all in jail. And the judge, I'll be honest with you, I have a family member, I'll just tell you, that's been accused of murder. All right? It happens. Do you know what they set his fucking bail at? His bail was set at $1 million. All right? And he has, he's working class, no money, no nothing to fight this. All right? It's going to cost him every bit of money that he has in his fucking savings, all of it. He's going to be bankrupted by this. But he has to get lawyers, and he can't get out of jail. So even though he's been accused, he's been in prison for fucking months. And they have years before they have to take it to trial. So he can just sit in jail for years because he's working class. Now these billionaires are all fucking connected to this, and none of them are sitting in jail. None of them have been arrested. And as part of an interview process for this. None of it. It's just so fucking frustrating. And yeah, we all want to hear from the victims. I don't want to hear from Elon Musk's account. I don't want to hear from J.K. Rowling's defenders. I want to fucking hear from the, I want to hear from them. I want them to be arrested and to have to answer for this. You bet your goddamn ass if my name appeared in those files and I was tied to all of this shit, Asmongold and all these, they might have an orgasm themselves that they finally have a trans person that they can tie this shit to. And they would try to make us their fall girl, okay? That's if a trans person was actually connected to this. But it's Trump. It's Musk. Oh, it's alleged. It's just alleged. And Kyle, you say that your uncle is also a murderer. I'm not going to say that my family members are murderer. I'm going to say that alleged. He hasn't gotten his trial yet. I'm not saying that just because he's family. I'm saying that it's because it is literally alleged. I can't talk about I'm aware of some of the facts of the case, but I'm not going to talk about it publicly. Just because it's he's going to need his defense and the evidence will come out in court. But it's frustrating to me that it's they wouldn't even grant him bail or whatever. They put his bail at $1 million. $1 million. And he's just a random working class dude. Right? But Trump and them, they don't get picked up. And for Rowling to be connected to this stuff, and Rowling, you were 100% connected to this. Allegedly. All right? We see what's in the files. This is America. I can say whatever the fuck I want about you. You fucking, like, wretched old piece of shit. And every single time Rowling shows up places, people should ask her about that interview. And why did she say, you know, why did she say that this Lolita story was one of her favorite novels of all time? And then ask her about the Epstein stuff as a follow-up every single fucking time. Every time she's on TV, everywhere she goes, that's what you should ask her. Why is a story about a pedophile her favorite story of all time? And why was she connected to Epstein? But I'm done with the political segments. Like I said, I was not like going to do politics all night. I've been doing an hour and 40 minutes of it, and I'm just like never going to be able to fucking get back to like my regular like video game streams and stuff. I'm going to play some games for a little bit. We're going to wind down. Shane says, why are you saying that to me? Are you implying that's my position? What's your, no, as far as I know, like, you'd want to hear out victims too, right? Yeah, as far as I know, like, Shane 100% was in agreement with me. I'm so low level. I barely have any attacks right now. I'm trying to simmer down. Because I got pretty heated there. But, you know, it is what it is. It's like, we all have the exact same system of justice, unless you're, you know, a billionaire, or you're, you know, Epstein, or you're Trump. Then you, it's a different system of justice for you.
What can I do for you? How are ya? Safe travel.
Well, yeah, but you can't force somebody to share a story if they don't want to see it. Thanks, Hana. It's always nice seeing you. I hope you enjoy your lunch. All right, that you enjoyed your lunch, and we'll see you. Oh, I did have Keg Smash. See, I should have looked. Just going to move that there. Leaf said, or sorry. Didn't want their message told. I mean, if y'all want to, do y'all want me to just invite you on and y'all can just talk about it? Because, like, that way you're not having to just argue in the chat. I know both y'all have Discord.
The Shrine God protect your allies. What's the situation? I am trusting you with the lives of my brethren.
No, it's fine. If y'all were going to keep arguing back and forth, I was like, do you want to just come on and we can just talk about it? Because it might be some, you know, it might be able to work something out, but it might also be of interest. Like, share with the class type of thing. It would just depend on Kyle. Does Kyle want to come on? And y'all can just talk about it. Maybe I'll mediate a little bit or something. But just say the word and I'll invite both of y'all up here. Otherwise, I'm going to just enjoy my game. It's such a terrible place that we find ourselves in. But if we know anything from looking at, the messaging and how this has gone over for Trump, like, they are going to get massacred, like absolutely massacred when it comes to the midterms. This is just hurting his popularity so fucking bad. He's like, I think right now his popularity is somewhere around like where Nixon was when he left office. I wish I could like have a drink tonight. That's what I would like to do. Just feel like I need it, but I have a blood test I have to do tomorrow, so not going to do that. I don't want to throw off any results. Maybe Wednesday I'll on the Wednesday stream we'll have a little bit of fun. But even though people like don't ever like want to talk about it in regarding like to trans people, like we do have to get our like hormone levels and stuff checked periodically. It's part of our like healthcare.
At ease. Anything to report? Report back.
The wagon is ready to go.
Wait. I need you for another fight.
One of the things that like is honestly like annoying and I find like very disconcerting is like having to go shopping
See, young one.
like with a dissociative disorder.
We will need our most veteran
I like constantly forget the things that I'm supposed to buy.
ancient enemies. Head
It's so frustrating.
conservatory.
Like if I don't write down all the things like that I'm supposed to get at a store, I'll just like literally forget whatever I'm at the store for. It's kind of like one of those things that if you ever like walk into a room and then you forget while you're there, it's like that, but I'm shopping. And then we keep forgetting the things that we needed to buy. And like it's just the environment is kind of stressful. So then we end up like becoming like really blurry and it's difficult for us to like focus on what we needed, which is probably pretty counterintuitive if you listen to us and the things that we've talked about and the debates that we engage in, to know that it's like, yeah, we struggle with we struggle with like things like shopping and some basic things, like just part of having a dissociative disorder. One of the other things that kind of like is a little annoying, but a lot of people like, I don't know if it's going to make sense to people that don't have this type of shit, but like if I go and like I was shopping, right, and I saw like calendars and I was like, oh, I need to get a calendar because like we don't have a calendar, not since the new year. The issue is that like we'll see a set of calendars and one of them will have like some goth design or something on it. Say, oh my god, I love like the goth design so much, I want to get the goth design. But then part of us will want to get like the Super Mario Brothers calendar with the Super Mario stuff on it, and then one of us will want to get a calendar themed with like animals or something on it. And we end up becoming like so indecisive and we all are desiring different things that we just end up not buying anything, which is very like frustrating because like we can't come to a like consensus on what the thing is that we want to get. And I find the same thing as hard, like with games and stuff, because I'll go and want to like I want to tank in this game, but then I want a DPS or we want to heal, and it's difficult for us to you know uh, do anything for a longer period of time. And I know like people with ADHD talk about some of this stuff. I don't know if you have ADHD, then maybe you deal with like this type of like executive dysfunction. But for us, it's not an executive dysfunction. It's that, we have different parts that want to do different things, and then we'll get very dissatisfied with a character that can't do whatever they want to. Aesthetics is all in your bag. As in, like, are you, like, I'm pretty autistic, right? Do you mean like it's in your bag, as in like it's on your bag, like you have a bunch of like uh patches and stuff? Because that could work out. You can end up putting like different patches on your bag. Look, I'm befriending crabs. It's like, have no fear. It's like the elementals were trying to harm these basilisks. I'm really tempted to make Monk one of my mains this next expansion. It's a lot of fun. I like the way that the class plays. It might not be as strong as like Demon Hunters like are, but I feel good as far as like the way that they play. I think it would be a good time. Like I know I'm gonna have like I'm gonna do like Paladin and Druid, but I think like between Paladin, Druid, and Monk, like if I have all three of those characters to play around with, I should be like I think we'll all be satisfied between each one of them. It has to oh yeah, the aesthetics 100%. It has to feel and smell right. Yeah. Oh, I was watching a show the other day. I don't know if y'all have seen this, but it's called like Blue Eye Samurai. It's it's an animated show. I only watched like the first episode of it, but so far it's like really good. Like really good. I love the animation. I love the fighting in it is really good, and the stories are pretty interesting thus far. One of the but part of the story, like it's not really a spoiler because like it's kind of what the show is all about. The reason it's Blue Eye Samurai is because it takes place, when like white people are first getting to Japan, and the character basically uh, ends up being like a like their dad was white but their mom was Japanese, and the person like their dad is like a piece of shit, like engaging with like the opium trade and all this stuff like that, like a very hurtful person, and like was like terrible to the character's mom, and because of that they end up being born mixed. And in Japan at the time, in that day and age, it's seen as like shameful, and they call the character like monster and that type of thing. And I kind of wanted to just address a little bit of this because, like, the character, the dad is bad because like he's actually a bad person. But referring to people with like, mixed ancestry as monster was apparently a synonym for bastard back in the day. And yeah, whiteys. Yeah, 100%. But the thing is like, it made us feel a certain kind of way. Because, like, we didn't know, like, our dad growing up. So, like, for a lot of times that we were called, like, bastard or whatever. But then, like, we're also multiracial. And we've also been called, like, mutt or, that sort of thing. And, like, I don't know. It ended up making us think about things that, like, I hadn't thought about in a long time. It's just the way that people view, like, race and race purity and stuff like that. Like we talked about, the Hays Code earlier, when they're like, oh, you can't have, like, miscegenation and stuff like that. And, like, my entire family history, like, for generations, was, like, miscegenation. So, like, when I hear stuff like that, I know they're trying to say that people like me are, like, unacceptable, essentially. And not just because I'm trans, like, I wouldn't be acceptable for a lot of these conservative types, like, no matter what. I just look white because I'm very pale. So when I was, like, truck driving and stuff like that, a lot of these people would talk with me and, like, just treat me like, any other person, because I wasn't visibly mixed to them. There might be, like, a slight hint by our hair, but that would, that's it. And it's just like, I mean, it's an unpleasant thing, the way that people, like, talk about you, or the way that, like, you that these people find you, like, unacceptable, and that there's not really, you're not going to fit in very well with their culture if they actually knew about you. But then the other side is, like, if you bring it up or mention it, then people are going to say, like, oh, you're just bringing this up, or, like when trans people talk about issues that concern them, or, people of color talk about issues that concern them, they're just like, oh, well, you're just bringing this up. You're making something out of this when there doesn't have to be something like you're anti-white or whatever. And it's like, I'm not anti-white to point out that y'all treat us differently when you learn that we're, like, multiracial. And it's not something that, like, I mean, not since I was a kid, when, like, people, like, really knew me, as far as, like, my parents and that sort of thing. They might say things like that, we're a bastard or whatever. But it wasn't that they, like, really knew anything about us. Then you get older and find out that this is, like, a common thing that people used to think. And it's very bizarre about, like, why do they think that I am worth less as a person just because of who my ancestors are? But then they want to cry about, like, white persecution and stuff like that. Whereas, like, whiteness has been something that, like, has largely benefited me just because of, like, the fact that my skin is pale. So it's not obvious to them that I'm mixed. It's just something that I was thinking about. And it's like, much less are they going to want to know that depth of you, let alone appreciate, respect, or love. No, exactly. Like, a lot of times, they don't want to know that about you. And if they do find out about that, it's going to make them hostile. Even though they're going to say something like, well, I'm not racist. I'm just against, miscegenation. And then say, okay, so does that mean, like, what does that imply about people like me? Or am I unacceptable because there's miscegenation in my past? It's so dumb. Even the term miscegenation is just racist bullshit. It's like we're all like equal to each other. Why would I entertain the idea that like, oh, I'm lesser than you because of like who my parents were? And like part of the show that I was watching, you know, they use a metaphor of like forging a sword for like race, and they talk about, you know, if you essentially like try to beat the impurities, like all the impurities out of a metal and forging a sword, you actually make it like more brittle and weaker than if you allow for like some like impurities or whatever. And they're trying to use this as a metaphor because of people referring to miscegenation as impurity. And it's supposed to be like a nod to the main character that like, hey, just because you are, you know, perceived as, you know, mixed and you would be called like monstrous by some of these people, that doesn't mean that like, you know, you can't also be strong. Like I get what they're trying to say. Do you want to come on, Shane, and talk about this? You're saying you don't know if it's widespread. What do you mean you don't know it's widespread? I can, we can have a conversation about it. Like 100%. And that way there's not like a delay. Because I can tell you about some of our experiences. When you say like you don't know if it's widespread or not, what do you mean? Like, okay, I grew up in rural Alabama, and I can tell you, people out there, not all of them, hashtag, but hey, there was a significant amount of racism even while I was growing up in the 90s, and especially in the rural schools and stuff that I went to. Like, significant racism. And the thing is, I had like a passing privilege so that if I didn't say anything to out that I was mixed raced, then like no one was ever going to say anything about it. Do you understand? Like they can't spot it, so then they can't they don't act on it because they don't know. So I'd have to like volunteer the information. Sounds good. I would I would enjoy like having a conversation about this. And Morgan says there are lots of people against it, but it's also kind of depends on where you are. Right, but even the fact that we have the term miscegenation.
No.
Hey, there you are. Welcome, Shane.
Heyo, how's it going?
Going pretty well. I'm just doing a stream and playing some World of Warcraft and just kind of hanging out. How are you?
Good, good. I turned off the stream because now I'm on Discord, so that way it's not doubling up. So I can't see the screen now. Uh, um, but no, my question, like there's obviously white supremacy and racism, and there's some people that are out and proud about it, and just like, doing the Steve Bannon thing of being like, we should own the term racist and be proud of it and stuff. And then there's the white genocide, like Nazi talking points and stuff. But I feel like at the end of the day, many people, and I've never been to the Southern United States for more than brief visits, but I feel like most people would still be like, no, I don't actually have a problem with black people. I just want to protect white people. Like, the actually being like, no, I hate black people, or I hate indigenous people, or I hate Asian people, and they like admit that to themselves and say that out loud. I feel like that'd be pretty rare. And then when it comes to someone who's like against mixed race couples, like the perception I have is that even today, with like things being so terrible, most people would be like, oh yeah, I have no problem with that. Like, you should marry whoever you like, love is love, right? And it's only like then if their kid came home with like a girl that or a guy that was like not their race, that's when they might be like, hey, like, are you sure this is the right person? Like, suddenly they would have a problem, even though they never indicated outwardly. But you're saying, or are you saying, that there's just people that are outwardly like, oh, you're a mixed race couple from like generations ago? That's gross. You're bad because of that.
I'm saying that there's a large contingent of people that are like anti miscegenation, right? They do not like race mixing at all. And they will just tell you that they think that each race should, quote, stick to their own kind. Okay? My grandmother's church in Alabama like preached often against miscegenation. All right? The pastor would use the biblical Levitical law about mixed fabrics and would compare like people of different races being together as mixing fabrics, and essentially saying like it's anti-biblical to do that. It's breaking the Levitical law to have interracial marriages. And then we know that statistically, and this is just like true, mixed race couplings are more often end in divorce and do not like last. Then you say like, well, wait a minute, like why is this happening? And what we find is a similar phenomenon when you look at like say detransition people. And you say like, why did you detransition? And they say like, well, because I did not get socially the support that I needed. Very often with mixed race couples, it ends up being the same type of thing, where the reason why they end up separating is because it was difficult for them being together with how much pushback they were getting socially. And we can just look statistically at like what people say when they're like interviewed or asked about it, and find that like that's the case. And then like you said, there might be the temptation to be like, oh well, most of these people probably are, like, I don't even know if what you were saying, like, no offense, but I don't even know if I consider that like much different than, I don't know how that challenges what I was saying in the first place very much. You're saying that there are people that will pay lip service to being okay with like mixed race couples, but then if their daughter or son comes home with like somebody of a different race, then they'll have a problem with it. That just reveals that they were never okay with it in the first place, doesn't it?
It does, but I feel like at least in the communities that I grew up in, I feel like the number of people who would outwardly say that they have a problem with mixed race couples is like less than 1%. But then the number of people that what might actually have a problem if their kid brought home someone from the wrong race might be like 25%. Now those numbers are obviously pulled straight out of my butt. It could be a lot higher. Probably is higher, frankly. But I doubt it's more than 50%. But I could be wrong. Now, whatever the numbers are where I grew up, it's probably 2 or 3 times higher. Where you grew up in the southern United States. It's just a story you were telling about like someone just. I guess my question for you is, when someone said, "Hey, you're lesser because like, you have mixed race parents or grandparents or whatever it is, because you're not like a pure race one or the other." Are these people that like you met in school and were just like sitting across from each other in the classroom or in the lunchroom or like at the workplace, or are these like cousins of yours that aren't mixed race and they're like, "Ooh, you're bad for that"?
Well, it depends on, I can give you examples, but for the most part, like unless I told them, like they wouldn't know. So then
Right.
if I'm sitting there and I'm listening to them talk about race mixing. So first of all, I wasn't made aware of this until I ended up becoming like a teenager. And that's whenever I found out about like our like racial history. And my grandmother was like so ashamed of it that she literally did not teach us like anything about our culture hardly at all, other than like occasionally speaking French or cooking like certain types of food that like you'd only is from southwestern Louisiana,
Creole
and
type
I
thing.
yeah, Creole
Yeah.
Cajun, like our family was originally from like Lafayette in that area, And like that's like the heart of like, you know, the Cajun culture essentially. Like those counties out there, which are like, considered the Cajun counties. Lafayette is like toward the heart of it, you know. And so we didn't become aware of it until then. And people that we'd grown up around, we listened to like a lot of the kids, especially the ones from, you know, the more rural schools. They would say racist things or say like racist dog whistles and that sort of thing. And then like, you know, the mixed race kids would be like that were visibly mixed raced, like say they're like black and white or whatever, and they, you know, are a little bit darker. They would be, you know, made fun of, mocked, and all that sort of thing. And this was in person, like on the school bus and that type of thing. So like, I already knew what they thought of like mixed race people. And then later on, like whenever I got online, as the internet became more of a thing, it was like I would see people like make jokes about this or discuss this stuff periodically. And when it would come up, there'd always be some racist fucks that would like make an issue out of it. And then some of the conversations I've had about like people that have been the most racist like toward me about it have been from the UK. Specifically, like a lot of them are like English or Irish. They have been like absolutely some of the like most racist people that I've ever talked to on this subject specifically, you know. And I've like been called by them, you know, they've called me like mutt or mongrel and mud blood and that type of shit whenever they become aware like of our, you know, ancestry. But
So now the English. Oh, go ahead.
no, I'm just gonna say I grew up thinking that having like black family members, you know, native family members and Spanish family members was like just like that was just normal. I was like, oh, of course my cousins are, you know, Hispanic and everything else. Like, why wouldn't they be? This is just the family that I was used to. And then finding out later on that, you know, there are people that would like literally hate my family or, you know, preach against us for being like mongrels and shit was very surprising.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all with the British. Doesn't really surprise me too much with the Irish, although that's kind of more sad because of Ireland's history of being like under the yoke of colonialism. I would have hoped that they'd have more like solidarity, but also like it doesn't surprise me that you're gonna run into racism online because even at like the best of times, like peak liberal woke Obama years, um, there's still lots of racism online because it's anonymous and like you know the tiny minority of people that are just the worst are able to take up lots of space. But for yeah, I guess it's not so much. I mean, obviously, I'm not doubting you. I guess I'm just expressing my culture shock that like you know people might openly share that sort of thing and talk about their racism like that because like I've seen a couple cases of racism and I've heard a few stories of people being like, yeah, this racist thing happened to me, but I've never been sitting in a room where I mean, but there's with a couple of exceptions, but these are like not people I knew. But I've never been sitting in a room where someone's like, yeah, you know, um, I just think that like mixed race couples are terrible. Or I just think that like you know indigenous people or black people or whatever are just the worst. Um, and they just like casual racism that way. Um, Actually, no, let me take that back. There's a lot of casual racism about indigenous people in Canada, but not so much with black people. Um, I only ever like I used to be in sales, and I remember one time someone was complaining that the company that they were with, which is why they were switching to my company, which is great. I'm getting a sale. Um, and that's like, you know, I think my commission was $42, so I'm like making money. And he was like, yeah, I was just so pissed off that this company changed their policy without even communicating with me. And now, if they'd done it in a white fashion, and just reached out to me and said, hey, we're going to make this change because whatever, it'd have been fine. But I just got the bill and it was higher and there was no warning. And I was just like, I was like shocked, but I didn't really react because I was like, I didn't know how to react. And then I didn't want to like rock the boat because I still wanted to get the sale. So I got the sale, and afterwards I was like, holy shit, like that guy was fucking racist. But like that's like a glaring exception in my mind. Um, that someone would just be that upfront about it with someone they don't even know. So I don't know. I guess
Wait, can I ask you? I
sure.
want to. I know the answer. It's just for the viewers, all right, and the listeners later on. They might not know, right, what your views are, because
Mhm.
I just want to like clarify. Would you agree that systemic racism like is an issue?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so if there's systemic issues, and that would affect like people of color, right?
100%.
All right, if the systemic issue affects people of color, and it's like, well, society definitely has a issue with systemic racism. Why would you think that race mixing wouldn't be an issue with those same people? Like for every person that is like, you know, that is racist in that system, most of those people, a majority of them, are also going to be against race mixing. They're going to be hostile about the idea of mixing with the race that they like are prejudiced against.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. And I think that like I have two thoughts. One is that because I'm white, um, I have the privilege of basically living in like ignorant bliss, where I could be in a workplace filled with a bunch of other people and think that there's no racism here, and then a person of color could like join the company, and people could suddenly be racist, and I might only see a few snippets of it and be like, what the fuck? Like that's really out of character for this person. But even though I only see one or two snippets of it, the person could be experiencing a bunch of racism from like, maybe it's only a third of the office, and then they quit because they're like, this is a hostile work environment, and then things go back to normal, and I'm like, well, that was a weird anomaly, but yeah, there's no racism here because there's no people of color for me to like see the racism come out, so it can kind of hide under the surface that way. But I also think that like the pernicious thing about systemic racism is that people that aren't actively racist, they just don't really give it much thought, can just move through the world and be like, yeah, it sucks that some people have less money than others. And yeah, it seems like a lot of poor people tend to be indigenous or people of color or Asians or well, not so much Asians, but you know what I mean. But it just is what it is, and it's just some people have more money, some people have less money. There's poor white people too, and obviously I'm you know very much running off my own experiences here. Um, and I've learned a lot since then. And even while we've been talking, I've been thinking of like, oh no, there's that other example of this happened, and this person said this. So there are more examples that I'm thinking of. I'm probably just thinking more of my childhood growing up. I didn't see any of that, whereas obviously you did, and I think that's because you lived in a area where there was more mixed race people and people of color, so there was more opportunity for the racism to show itself. And you probably also, well, definitely grew up in a more racist part of the world. But yeah, I guess the last thing I'll say is that um, in the society that I'm in, out and out racism is for the most part still considered like gauche and unacceptable and like not right to say, which is like obviously kind of a liberal mindset because not saying the racist thing doesn't mean that there's not racist systems at play that need to be deconstructed. And a lot of people that aren't saying anything racist and they aren't even like hatred would have hatred in their heart are going to like dramatically oppose any sort of progressive changes because that's going to upset the current power systems and all that stuff. I don't really have an end point. I might be just blabbing, but I do think that um, there's still a little bit of shame, I guess, that racists have in Canada, whereas in America it sounds like even when you were growing up, because we're close to the same age, but even when you're growing up, racists in your area had a lot less shame than they did in my area.
Oh yeah, no, there's I grew up in what was in the state that was like considered like the heart of the Confederacy. You get what I'm saying? And
Oh yeah.
like I grew up in a part of the state that was like more of like a cultural like melting pot, which for that state there was a large variety of people that were there, and I think that led to more of like what you're talking about, where there's a lot more people of color that were there, and there's also a lot of different ways for people to like actually you know see those folks to be racist toward them. But then there's also plenty of you know like mixed people. And one of the things that I found the most frustrating is like the racism that that people that were like us had endured, only for like my grandmother to be racist herself and having to listen to racism coming out of her mouth, even though that's some of our own family. Like, why are you saying that? You know? And I just don't understand why people are like I don't understand why skin color like matters like that. You know what I mean? I just grew up with too many like not only like friends, but family members that were people of color, like within our society. And that's why, I said before, like I recognize the privilege that I have in being like passing, like I am white passing easily. So it's just not something that I have ever really like had to deal with in the same way that like some of my cousins and stuff have had to deal with. But if you ever are curious about it, I would say you can go and look up these stats for like look up like opposition to miscegenation, or like look up how many people are like support miscegenation, and I think you might be surprised at the results.
Yeah, I'll take a gander. I also think when it comes to I mean obviously these attitudes are going to be different depending on where you are. Um, I don't know. When I was a kid, I remember learning about different social movements and learning about like women's rights, pushing for the right to vote, black people pushing for the right to vote. Even like before then, white people that, or at least white men that weren't landowners pushing for the right to vote, right? And each time it was like presented in the textbooks and by the teacher and stuff as like, basically the good guys versus the bad guys. And then like I don't know if it was like taught this way or it was just my child brain projecting like Saturday morning cartoons onto it, but it just seemed like the people pushing against for women's rights or pushing against freeing the slaves or pushing against um, this progressive like legislation is just obviously the bad guys and they're like cartoon villains. And when they get defeated and the bill gets passed, it's like, okay, the bad guys lost and the good guys won, and yay, things are better now. But then it's like, as I got older, and when I say older, I mean I'm still in like probably high school. Um, I was thinking like as I'm learning more about history, I'm like, well, the bad guys obviously weren't defeated; they were still there, even though they lost that battle. And but then there were still other battles, and it was the same people fighting against it. And it's just so amazing that like they could be fighting against something so strongly that 50 years later, 40 years later, 30 years later, everyone agrees that's the right thing to do. Like nobody today, like 1999 or 2003 or whatever it was, would ever try and say that like black people are inferior to white people or that like women shouldn't have the vote or something like that. But like it was such a controversial thing at the time. And then I was thinking like, well, I wonder what sort of battles are going on right now that those same people, because they weren't defeated, they're still there. And at the time I had not made the connection between those people being like wealthy capitalists that just wanted to keep power concentrated. I just thought it was like two groups of people like if the classroom is picking on what movie they want to watch during a free period, and half the class is voting this and half the class is voting that. It's just like a difference of opinion. I didn't understand the class dynamic there because of course that's not going to be taught in a high school or in any sort of public school in the imperial core nations. But sorry, I'm going off track. the thought that just pierced my mind was this idea that like obviously these guys were in the wrong and now, but 20, 30 years ago, 50 years ago at the time, they were fighting to like keep women from getting the vote or keep black people from getting the vote or or all these things. So I wonder what the current fights are that is like very obviously going to be on the wrong side of history in 10, 20, 30 years, but that right now is just like this controversial thing. And it was right around that time that gay marriage was in the news and being passed uh, in Canada, being allowed. Um, so then I kind of thought about that because I wasn't gay and I hadn't really given much thought to gay people. And other than like, it kind of grossed me out for reasons that I've since deconstructed. Um, it took me about like maybe 4 days to work out that like, okay, yeah, no, gay people should definitely have the right to marry. Um, but after going through that process, I've just always kind of thought like, okay, like it's not enough to just agree with the battles that have happened in the past. You also need to look at the battles happening now for civil rights and, take the right side because in 20, 30, 40 years, you'll be vindicated. And, we want to make these battles as easy as possible to win because we want to increase the amount of justice in the world. And so I was already kind of past the liberal identity because there's the old meme of liberals being like for every civil rights movement except for the current one and against every single war except for the current one. And to be progressive is to actually be like, no, we're against the current war and we're for the current civil rights movement. Even though I then was like quite conservative in other ways for quite a few years before I had an epiphany many years later. Um, I don't really have a conclusion to all that. I'm just sort of blabbing. What do you think?
I mean, I agree with you. I used to like a decade ago, my political alignment was like a centrist. I had been a liberal like for a long while, but I'd always had like conservative friends. And then there was like a lot of rhetoric that was like anti-conservative rhetoric, and I was like, I don't know if that's all that fair because like, I know some of these conservatives and like some of them aren't like, bad people or whatever. But that was like essentially if I, looked at them supporting their family and that type of thing, and I ignored the things like they had a problem, with my relationships and that type of thing. Because a lot of them were more kind of libertarian and they like, they would not choose to be with people like I would choose to be with them, but they were like, you can do whatever you want to. And I was like, yeah, they aren't really authoritarian. But then over time, I realized that they're just giving cover for the authoritarians. And then like when you know, they would still vote for Trump and everything else. And I was like, nope, no, no, they're, you know, that was kind of the thing that was my disillusionment from the center. Was I realized that a lot of the people that called themselves centrists were always supporting the right. They would not support progressive policies. And then the people that I thought that would support, like gay marriage and that sort of thing, because they were all about like liberty and freedom, came out against gay marriage. And I could not like maintain that position anymore of like, this is just bullshit. Which, I mean, I identify more as like libertarian left now than just libertarian in general. This is in America, so in America there's like a libertarian right and a libertarian left. And I essentially just went from being libertarian right, like in the center, to libertarian left, like very left, because I agree with you that we have to, fight the current injustice. We can't just look to the past and say, well, slavery was a bad idea. Problem solved. We need to actually, we need to actually fight against injustices happening right now. And it used to be gay marriage and gay rights, and now it's, trans issues. The other thing is going to be like ICE and what's going on with migration, right? Like we need immigration reform, and we need to make sure that these migrant people are not being just abused, jailed, and tortured. That they're still getting treated you know, with humanity and dignity, and given their, you know, if they're seeking asylum, being heard out and being treated with like fairness and equity. Like,
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. And like, you know, we need to address like patriarchy and this like rape culture. And like for people that are going to say like, well, this isn't really an issue or really a problem. I mean, we just covered earlier, you know, like 4chan and Moot have connections with Epstein. Like in generating, and Steve Bannon trying to generate this culture war was also tied to what was going on. So like we know that there's like a significantly influential, wealthy, powerful group of people that are trying to influence our culture, and they are trying to tip the scales in ways that make it more favorable for exploitation of women and girls that they're trafficking, but also, you know, that harms like targets trans people or people of color that uphold this idea of like white supremacist frameworks because it benefits them, because they are very often very wealthy white people. And that is the, you know, the Epstein class. That is probably going to be like one of the most significant struggles of our current days, is fighting against that like oligarchy and the people that would try to dominate our governments and turn the working class against itself. Like we've got to have solidarity with each other. And it's like, I don't think that like white people are evil or bad for being white. It's like you said, the systemic systems of oppression and whiteness, that's the issues. It's why like my life would be easier than my cousin, you know, if they were trans, just because they are darker than I was, right? That's bullshit. Like why should their life be made more difficult just because their skin is a little bit more tan than mine is, even though we have like largely the exact same history? It's just like, are people going to call you Creole, or are they going to call you Cajun? You know, that's what they call me, Cajun, but call my cousins Creole. Even though if you look, you know, ancestry wise, like Creole, like all Cajuns are Creole, but not all Creole are Cajuns, because Cajuns are like largely white passing and therefore often held more like privileged positions within like Cajun counties than Creole people did, even though like all of us are like intermingled. Like literally the difference in calling them Creole or Cajun very often was how light are they? How light skinned are they?
Mhm.
It doesn't change the fact that we're all Acadians. At least, you know, Cajuns are all Acadians. In which case, you know, from your homeland up there in the frozen wastelands of Canada, you know.
Yep. Back when France owned everything from Quebec down to Louisiana and everything in between.
Yeah, and specifically that the Brunswick and Nova Scotia area.
Mhm.
Oh, damn it! I did the same thing last time I was talking. I missed the I missed that ring. I'm going to ask you though. I think this conversation is kind of like winding down, unless you have anything else to add there.
The only thing I was going to say was like every time you say rape culture, including earlier when I was listening and just listening to the stream, I just have flashbacks to like bad faith ghouls and idiots being like, "What do you mean? More rape happens in like Nigeria or like in like a Democratic Republic of the Congo war zone than happens on like an American campus. What do you mean there's a rape culture?" And it's like just no curiosity and just like the most basic rhetoric possible. And like the only thing more frustrating than how stupid it is how effective it is at making people be like, yeah, crazy leftists.
Oh yeah, by rape
So,
culture, I'd be like, oh, you know, I'm not talking about like, you know, other countries. I'm talking about the culture that makes it permissible to elect people like Donald Trump, who's like, you know, the best friend of a pedophile, and then like all the people connected to that said pedophile to, you know, operate in some of the highest positions of our government and decide like literally our economic and trading policy. And all these people are protecting a giant ring of that sex trafficking women and girls. I mean, that rape culture. You know?
Totally. No, I know what you mean, and I'm on board with it. But yeah, I agree. The conversation is winding down. Did you have a final thought?
Yeah, you had talked before about, in your country you didn't have the same, like maybe you had like a different, more liberal upbringing or whatever than the area of the world where I grew up in. I'm going to say like we listened last night to some apologetics that people were running, all right? That it's called the lost cause narrative. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. But the
Oh yeah.
lost cause narrative is the idea about like the gentle, the gentleman nobility of the South, the Confederate gentleman that's just trying to defend his right to having a way of life. And like people will give all sorts of reasons and like, oh, invading some fort or whatever, and that's the actual reason for the war and everything else. And they want to ignore the cornerstone speech that explicitly stated that the Confederacy was founded on the principles of slavery and that white people were superior to black people. And a lot of times, like, I find that conservatives aren't necessarily aware of the cornerstone speech, even if they grew up in the South. Because I was never told about the cornerstone speech all throughout school and everything else. Oh, yeah. So whenever, this is something that you might find interesting. When I was growing up, whenever I had teachers who were black, they would often talk about like Black History Month, or they would point out some of the atrocities that had happened to black people. But when I had white teachers, they would often skim over this stuff, or when we covered the Civil War and stuff, they would often give us lost cause apologetics as part of the lessons.
Were there any white teachers that like were like more realistic and, for lack of a better word, woke, and would actually be like teach it properly? Or were pretty much all the adults in your life um, racist to some degree?
I'm going to say like it was a cultural racism that permeated it. When they did try to teach it like neutrally, they were often pretty vague about like what happened and what they were talking about, so that it was difficult to get like a precise picture of what happened. And ironically enough, it wasn't until I had a more libertarian teacher in college that he talked about the things exactly how they happened, because like it entertained him that our history was so fucked up. So he would just tell you the truth of what happened, but he would do it from a point of like, you know, that he was humored by how awful things were. And you know, I debated with him a lot and stuff, but I still liked him enough as a person. Like he was just like kind of an asshole. He was kind of like a trollish type of person. But I had a lot of spirited like arguments and debates and stuff with him, and like he was like one of the first conservatives that I like had a serious debate with about gay marriage. And then like I was able to persuade him over to, that he should support gay marriage from a libertarian stance. And like that was kind of like one of my first forays into like actually like doing something like really politically active and one-on-one with somebody, was arguing for gay marriage. And like I had grown up arguing, debating like racism with people and that type of thing, just because like I'm gonna be honest with you, I find it like offensively stupid. Like it's difficult for me to find something that I am more contemptuous of when people talk about, their like anger or prejudice and stuff against people. Racism is like one of the most offensive things that I've ever encountered, because there's like no legitimacy to it whatsoever. And I say that from a stance of uh, like all that they have is a disgust reaction. Like that's it. And they're only grossed out that they're like different skin colors, like or ethnicity. I can't. It would be like if I like, it'd be like if somebody was like, oh, I would never own like whatever. I would never own a like orange goldfish or something, and you're like, why? And they're like, because I hate orange. Like,
Orange is actually my favorite color, so it's funny that you picked that.
right? But I'm saying it's that absurd. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
And
no,
like,
totally.
when you're trying to categorize bodies as a way, say, oh, you're, you know, black, you're white, you're whatever, that makes like no fucking sense at all. Like, you can see my skin on here, and like, obviously, like, I'm pale, and I like the, you know, I have also like pink skin, but that's not my entire body. I don't look like that all over my body. Like, I have different toned skin in different parts of my body. I like to say like, oh, well, this
I'm
person is
not
all
convinced. I might need you to prove it.
right.
I'm skeptical.
Yeah, I'll have to send you the fishnet photos, you know. But it just like uh, you know, people are like trying to summarize somebody as just being all of like a color is just stupid. And like, I mean, again, maybe it's just because, you know, of the autism, but like, I don't understand the point in even trying to categorize somebody like that. Like, to me, it's just, it's nonsense all the way down. I absolutely hate it.
Yeah, I feel that.
Did, I just want to ask real quick, because, you know, now that we're on YouTube and I can actually just talk about stuff, did you hear when I was talking about like the kink stuff earlier?
I came in for the end part of it, but I knew and I haven't gone back to watch the stream obviously because it's still going. Um, but yeah, I came in I think I got the gist of it. Yeah.
Right. That's what I was so like irritated about like beforehand, you know?
Yeah.
It's the idea that like if there is a kink or whatever that interests you, because of like certain types of laws, you're not allowed to interact with it or see it. And the idea that like you're not allowed to like engage in like consensual, like you're not even allowed to read consensual material between like fictional people. It's very
Yeah, so
frustrating.
dumb.
It's very annoying. I hate it so much. And like I cannot believe that we still have to deal with this shit. Like in America, we um back in 2000, I want to say around 2003, there were laws on the books that were called sodomy laws that would like criminalize you for having like gay sex. But it wasn't just if they saw you having gay sex. It was like, you know, if somebody else like reported it or whatever. And then we ended up having a court case that was Lawrence v. Texas, where essentially there was like some people that were doing some stuff together, and somebody else had like gone up to like their house or whatever and peeked in through their window and saw them like through a window, and then thus like filed a complaint with the police that like, oh, they're having gay sex in there. So the police like came and arrested them and like charged them. And that ended up like becoming a court case that, you know, they were trying to say, like, well, their privacy clearly should have granted them, you know, like they shouldn't have been prosecuted for it. And then that ended up turning into, do they have the right to, you know, have sex in the privacy of their own home? Like, why does this fall under a sodomy law anyway?
Yeah. I mean, isn't sorry, go ahead and finish.
No, that was, you know, that's what got rid of sodomy laws. That's why, you know, when I was growing up in 2000, you know, 2003 is whenever it first became legal for like my partners to have sex with me. Like before then, it would have been illegal, even if I was old enough to have sex with my partners. We would have been having like illegal sex just being together.
Yeah.
And that was the world
Well, I was
that
going to
I.
say that.
Oh no, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, you go finish it.
I'm going to say, like, I don't know, like, if you've ever had to, you know, think about that, but I grew up in a world where for the first part of my life, I knew that if I ever had sex with people that I was attracted to, I could be arrested. Like, it would be illegal for me to express myself sexually. And then later on, it would have been illegal for me to like marry the person that I loved. So it's like, you can't have sex with anyone and you can't marry them. That was what I anticipated growing up until those court cases overturned that stuff.
Yeah,
which
I am familiar with that, and I'm glad obviously that happened. I never sat down and really contemplated it, but like I said, when those cases were making it so that gay sex were no longer illegal in America, that's around the same time that Canada had already got past that years earlier and was like in the process of codifying gay marriage. Um, but yeah, it is a good reminder to me and to everyone that these social changes that we might take for granted now, uh, they didn't happen like 100 years ago. These are within the living memory of like, you know, lots of people, and they also it's also not a guarantee that we keep these rights.
100%. And that's why I get frustrated because it's like people just don't, a lot of people aren't aware of this stuff. And they're just like, they think it's absurd that like Republicans want to like come for, that they're going to harm, queer people or whatever. And I'm just like, for like the first part of my life, they would have arrested you for having sex with each other, and what makes me mad is like there are people, especially that are like the those that are complacent with this like Nazi regime. What's that guy's name? He's like the gay guy that
Min,
is like their token.
Min,
Uh, no, no, no. Uh,
no, okay. Dave Rubin.
Ruben. Yep,
Yeah,
Ruben. I've talked to men on this channel before. That was some
I
wild
know.
shit. Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story about that after, but keep going about Dave Rubin.
No, it's like people like Dave Rubin, because he grew up like I guess he grew up in like California or whatever. Like he's on one of the coastal type of people. Like he's old enough that for like a lot of his life, having sex with his partners would have gotten him arrested in the state that I grew up in. And yet we're supposed to like listen to this guy, like show up for Trump and to be like, oh, they want to push back all this social progress that we've made. And they want to go back to like, the 1700s. And people like Ruben think that like, and these other quislings, they think that like their marriage is safe or that no one's going to, overturn gay rights in that way. And when I've seen Republican politicians talk about like fantasizing that they should review Lawrence v. Texas, when they overturned Roe, not only were some people calling for them to overturn, uh, you know, uh, the Obergefell decision, there were calls to look at Lawrence v. Texas for the sodomy laws. And you know what else they called to have reviewed? Loving v. Virginia. All right. That's interracial marriage.
Mm.
So they're
I remember hearing about
already
that because isn't
right.
one of the Supreme Court justices in a mixed race marriage?
Clarence Thomas is, yes. And he's
Right.
one of the judges that said they would go back and look at it because the state that he lives in, he wouldn't be affected if that was overturned. But you damn well bet that if they make it, give you the ability so that you can, discriminate again, this in the South, that will affect a lot of people in the South. Like we had Mississippi try and pass laws against miscegenation in 2014,
Yeah.
just to touch on that subject again. Like this, all like I said, it all like connects back together. Um, but go ahead with what you were thinking.
I'm just going to agree too that yeah, like purity culture and this puritanical urge that is fostered and encouraged and magnified by the religious right is yeah utterly toxic. But I was going to say it's one of your older videos where you were playing a game and then had a conversation with Min for like maybe it was an hour, maybe half an hour, 2 hours. I can't remember. I had saved it, and then he was in a server running his usual game of being like, "Oh yeah, like I'm all for gay people, I'm all for trans people. I just have concerns that maybe the trans right activists are taking it too far in cases." And people having like these conversations and explaining it, and then he's kind of being like obstinate and stuff. And I was like, "Okay, Min, not only did they just explain it to you, and you're just playing dumb right now, but this has been explained to you before." So I posted the video of him, you and him having the exact same conversation, and at the time it was like maybe a year and a half old, maybe less than that, maybe only a year old. And this person he was talking to that was like leading the conversation, they just tore into him. And this is all over text and Discord, and was just like, wow, so you're nothing but a concerned troll, you're nothing but a sea lion. And like they didn't actually insult him at all, but it was just such a like a thorough dressing down. It was like impressive and kind of scary. And then he was banned from that server shortly afterwards. But it was just beautiful. So I don't know if I told you that story before, but I figured I'd share it now.
Yeah, lol. Get fucked, man. Like, I'm glad that video is still fucking haunting him, because like I went over all that stuff, and that was like, I've been so patient with him, and I knew him from another server where he had like done a lot of like, debating and stuff like that. He also there's a show called The Atheist Experience. It's like a call-in show where people call in to debate atheism. Like, I don't, if you know my channel, you probably are aware of The Atheist Experience, but just in case you're not, that's what it is. And he's called into ACD, the Atheist Experience, multiple fucking times, trying to debate trans issues with them. And he's constantly, this like very gentle spoken person. And he's like, oh, I just have questions. I just have concerns about, trans people and trans issues. And I'm like, he's a gay man and he's a quisling, 100%. And I've told him, I was like, I hope you like fucking realize that if you ever get what you want and they end up, like banning trans people and trans rights, and like they end up like just crushing our civil rights into the ground, they are coming for gay rights next. And for all these LGB fucks, like, y'all aren't funny, you're not clever, and they are not going to, like the Day of Rubens and stuff, they are not going to be forgiving or accepting of you. If they have their way, not only will Obergefell be overturned, but they will overturn Lawrence v. Thomas. And you won't even be able to have sex with your partner without being arrested, if that is restored.
Yep.
And like all the trans porn that y'all like to watch, and all the gay porn that y'all consume, because like, every time the Republican National Convention goes somewhere, it crashes Grindr servers. We know that we know that you look at dick. We know that you fucking thirst over trans women all the time. And a lot of times, some of those conservative men that are on the apps and stuff, if you talk about getting bottom surgery, they will message you to be like, please don't. Like, they clearly like women that have dicks. And it's fine. I just wish that they would, just appreciate us by either donating or like fighting for our rights and stuff like that, so that we're treated like better in society. And I can tell you why they don't do it. And this goes right back to that rape culture thing. It's because if we don't have equal rights, if we're less equal, in society, that means we have less power, and they're able to abuse us and harass us and like lord more things over us. Like the fact that, we might be trying to raise money for transition care or for like FFS or whatever, like it gives them more power over. So, oh, I will help you. I'll help pay for the surgeries that you need, but you have to, make certain videos for me, or you have to, perform certain favors for them. And like, it's pretty common that, this ends up being the case for like a lot of trans people that are trying to like afford their gender affirming care. They end up having to perform favors or sleep with people that they normally would not,
Yep.
And I've talked before about having to do, trade sex work in order for like a place to stay, that I, unfortunately had to do. But that's what they want. They want us to be in positions where we're vulnerable, where we're not supported by society, or that like our healthcare is not considered healthcare.
Same reason, I mean, to tie this back to capitalism, it's the same reason why they want to keep homeless people homeless and suffering, because they want to have a supply of people they can point to as like, a word of caution and a threat against any sort of like working class solidarity, and people asking for more money. And they also want to make sure that you've got that basically by keeping the lower echelons of the working class precarious, whether it's in gig work or whether it's in like crappy work where they work in 3 part-time jobs and healthcare is tied to employment and all this bullshit, it just makes it easier to exploit you. And it's terrible, but it's the exact same dynamic.
I also like 100%. Like it's all about this exploitation and their ability like to take advantage of you. Like, and as long as we allow them to keep doing that and getting away with it, that's exactly what's going to happen. And you can say like, oh well, why should I care? Like I'm not affected by trans issues. And it's like you say that right now, except the same people that are like wanting to abuse us and take advantage of us and shit like that are also the same people that are like trying to steal your social security information. Elon Musk and Doge took your social security stuff. Why do you think that they wanted that information? Why do you think that the same people that are this Epstein class that like sex traffic all these like girls and stuff like that, why do you think it was that one of the first people to speak out about Epstein and like what was going on in like 2012 was a trans woman that that Epstein had, trafficked and abused. And then when she came forward and accused him, all the media did was smear her and run photos of her like pre-transition and discredited her for being trans. Like all of this, plays together, like all of this interfaces, and like we really should be aware of this.
Yeah, it's like you see so many examples. This is something I've thought about like in the past and had already reached this conclusion, but you see so many examples of like working class alliances basically fracturing and being divided and conquered because you have white people and black people working together to get a fair wage, and then the company's like, well, we'll give white people a raise but not black people, and white people are like, okay, we'll take it, and then suddenly without that solidarity, instead of like everyone getting a really fair shake, white people get a leg up and black people, the white working class and the black people are just left impoverished. And it's the same with you see not all gay people, of course, and not all white people, but you see some gay people throwing trans people under the bus because they got their marriage and they want to be like, oh, these trans rights activists are just taking things too far, and divide and conquer. And I really think that whoever the absolutely the most marginalized person, and I don't want to like sound like a crazy lefty that's talking about the oppression Olympics, but whoever the most oppressed person is, if we center them in any sort of movement for worker justice and for social justice, then that means that like if we raise them up, everyone else is going to get raised up automatically. Not automatically. We would want to make sure that everyone gets a fair shake and do that intentionally. But if we make sure that the least privileged person on the planet is brought to a ceiling, pardon me, brought to a floor where they have their needs met, where they have equal rights, where they have protection under the law and all this stuff, then like the world is going to be such a better place. But when we keep just like individually thinking about ourselves and settling for like deals where you should just get thrown scraps in order to like divide up the coalition, like we could have nice things, but that's the reason. That's part of the reason we don't, and it's just frustrating.
Right. All right. There was what was the God? There was a law called what was that like? Something to do with like curbsides, and it was like disability access. Hold on.
Are you talking about like ramps and stuff?
Yeah.
Diversity, equity, inclusion stuff.
Yeah. I remember there was basically it was part of the like ADA stuff, right? Was like making sure that like sidewalks and stuff had like curbs and ramps and stuff that people could get into. And literally the standard of living for everywhere where they did that, the standard of living for everyone else also went up with the installation. Because like you said, it's like, you end up looking and saying, okay, like who needs the help the most? And then the projects that end up benefiting those people, which is like, installing ramps and curbs for people that need like wheelchair access or something. It turns out that like the city, in doing those improvements, also improved the entire sidewalk and stair system, like all throughout the cities and stuff. Every single place where they had to go and do the work for the ramps and curbs, they also just improved the sidewalks as well. So it's like, yeah, the people that don't need the ramps or those curbs, they end up still benefiting by having improved sidewalks. Like, it's just frustrating that you can see over and over again the same thing playing out, which is like, when we benefit the people that are like the least privileged in society, it helps everyone else along with them, like a rising tide lifts all boats types of thing. And if you're like, oh, well, we just need one really large tide that only lifts the biggest boats. And like, okay, so like you only lift your boat. Like, if everyone else around you is still suffering and still needs help, like that's going to negatively impact you. In the same way that these like privileged white people that I would know, wealthier, they'd be afraid that people that live in areas that are less fortunate than them might come over to their neighborhoods and like steal from them or break into their cars and shit like that. And it's like, okay, why do you think that those people would break into your like car or like break into your home in the first place? Like, why would they do that? And it's like, because clearly they're impoverished, they're desperate. That's who would break into your home to steal your shit. It's going to be a desperate person.
Yeah.
I'm not going to blame an entire community just because society as a whole has like utterly failed them and put them in a position where they feel like the only way that they can survive is if they steal from someone else. Like,
Yeah.
the person that is like the individual person that is like trying to steal your things, that's not your enemy. Your enemy are the policies and the society that create the circumstances to put the person in such a desperate place that their only choice is to steal from their neighbors. And social support is just like really important. But
Poverty is a policy decision, 100%.
exactly. And like a lot of the violence and theft and drugs and like a lot of the other problems that people, especially conservatives, would point to in our society as like issues that our society is facing is also policy decisions. And like, if you're not willing to vote, if you're not willing to like advocate for change or to stay politically informed so that like we at least know who's being put in power where, then like I don't understand like why you would even have an opinion on this shit. Because like you're not advocating for change, you're not actually doing anything to fix these problems. If you just sit back and complain about it while never taking any action. It's very frustrated.
Yeah.
Oh well. Do you have anything else that you would like to talk about?
I just glanced at the live chat. When does ethics ever come up into play within our social circles? I guess that was sarcasm. And then it will always be a person of the marginalized to stand up and do something. Agreed. Or at least the vast majority of the time. And drown the poor sounds like a Trump policy. Yep, Morgan. I mean, it's any conservative's policy when it comes down to it, but it especially sounds Trumpian.
100%. But I've been streaming for a minute. If anyone else wants to come up and chat, I'll chat with you as well. Otherwise, I am probably gonna end the stream pretty soon. It's been going on for like 3 hours, and my voice is getting pretty tired. But thanks for coming up, Shane. It was good talking with you. And
My pleasure.
Yeah, I'll talk with you anytime.
Heck yeah.
Have a good one. All right. Hopefully, if y'all have enjoyed the stream, please, hit the like button and share it. It always helps in the algorithm. Oh yeah, I am also a trans person that desperately needs help, like affording my surgeries and shit because of the shithole country that I live in, and without having like any access to like medical care currently. that would cover what I need. But instead of like selling you, on an OnlyFans or something, which is, you know, no shame at all if you do that, but I definitely uh I'm not nearly attractive enough to do OnlyFans. So I will sell you like books and stuff instead. Pretty soon I'm going to be publishing a fantasy novel. It's going to be like very queer with like trans characters and LGBT Q plus characters, like, and it's heroic fantasy, sword and sorcery, that sort of thing. If you like Vox Machina, if you like Dungeon Dragons, if you like those sorts of things, definitely be on the lookout for it. I will go ahead and like make an announcement for it, and I'll probably cover it in a separate video. But if you want to help support me, definitely like let people know who that might have an interest in those books, or if they might want to like read it and do like a review or whatever once I release it. I would greatly appreciate it. But I will see y'all in the next stream on Wednesday.